If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Yeah, hi everyone. So yeah, today we're going to start about a little bit introduction about our BODS, how BODS was used in our IT, and how it will do all the ETL processing as well as the migration process, like wherever project needs, and how it was easier than compared to other tools, and how it has more visibility compared to other tools in the market, and how it was very much secure, and how it was like very much faster compared to other tools, and which type of technology that it was going to use to do the backend work whatever we do in our front end, and what all are the options that it has contains, and how can we make use of those options to meet our business requirements. So these all are the few things today we are going to learn in our this session. So in this session, we will discuss about like overview of the BODS tool. Okay. So initially, BODS was a single tool which was acquired by SAP itself. Previously, it was business object and data integration. So those two tools are combined and it was placed in BODS. So from there, this BODS was came into picture. So this BODS tool, one of the most used tool in ETL purpose, like top 10 ETL tool was there, right? So in that top 10, this BODS was one of the most used tool by our customers or users or developers, because it was easy to use. So only it has that much of popularity in market. So guys, if you have any doubt in between, just stop me and we can continue from there. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So this was the agenda of today, overview of SAP bots, and what is the history behind bots, how bots came into picture, and what is the um, current current version of bots. So these are things we can discuss. So if any tool or if anything, it should have some architecture, how it should work, how the backend it was working. So these all are the things we can discuss in this session. And other than tool, we have you know some web URL is there. So while going in depth, we can discuss about that. So that web URL we can access from management console. It has very vast amount of options where we can see the job running status, and we can see the scheduling of the jobs, and we can see the what all are the jobs that we have already implemented in designer. Because see, in BODS there are two types we can say, like one is for monitoring purpose and one is for development purpose. So coming to development, all the development work will be done in designer. Later we will talk about designer and how it will be most important in BODS. And coming to management console, it mostly used for monitoring the job or to see any issues in the job, or it will be used for scheduling the jobs, or it might be used for like to start and stop the job servers, real-time servers, all of that, like whichever used in our current project. Or also it was mainly, yeah, that is the main purpose of management console. Later we will discuss about deeply regarding this management console. And next, coming to job server, like job server is nothing but like whenever we developed some jobs, right, in our designer, so that job will execute on job server to store the metadata and to process the data from one place to another place. So that is the main purpose of Java job server. We will discuss about that in little in upcoming days. And next, data services designer, as I mentioned previously, like, so this designer is the heart of this BODS tool. So without this designer, we can't implement anything in the our ETL process. Like if we want to implement some job, if we want to delete something, if we create something, if we want to connect from some system from BODS, then all those things will be done from this designer only. And engines are nothing but like it will process the data from one place to one another place. Here place is nothing but like one system to another system, and like it will have all the transformations whichever defined by us. So those transformations will be passes through these engines via job server. Okay, so like that it was, and we will discuss about this little more. And access server, so where we use this access server, what is the purpose of access server in BODS? Okay, and how important this was in BODS. So all of these things we will discuss. And advantage of data services. So like BODS is nothing but like business objects data services. So simply we are calling it as a data services. Few people call it as data services, and few people are calling it as BODS. So that people's choice. But in our case, we are calling it here as SAP data services. So we will check like what is the advantage and disadvantage of BODS tool compared to any other ETL tool which are available in market. So till now, if anyone have any questions, you can ask about this agenda.
So Venkat, like management console and job server, these we can access through URL based, right? So, but the designer should be we need to install some client, right? There is no any URL based. We cannot design anything in the URL based, right?
No, management console is URL based. Job server, it was available at management console. Designer is the tool we need to install in our machine.
Okay. There is no any like we cannot connect the URL and we can design something. We cannot design
No,
any
no,
jobs.
no. URL
Oh,
wise, we cannot do here.
okay.
If we want to change something, then we must go to designer. There only we can change anything. But after developing that, if you want to run some jobs, or if you want to see the status of the jobs, or if you want to schedule something, then all of those goes to management console.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so let me move into next slide. So yeah, overview of SAP bots. As you know, like bots is an ETL tool. ETL is nothing but like extraction and transformation and loading data into the uh, so whatever the system that you want, ERP system or any other like databases or any other structured data files or any other like unstructured data files, whichever it may be. So why SAP bots is an ETL tool? Because see, whenever we take one example of like retail stores, so whoever the end user was there, right? For suppose I went to some Walmart store, there I bought something like some groceries I bought. So I need to do the billing. And there what happens, like nowadays like many of the people are using scanners, right? So previously they need to type the product and they need to enter that. So whenever that was happening, so that particular end user who was doing all this process, he doesn't know what is the taking of all this information and what was it happening. He knows only like, so some customer was came to me and he or she buy that particular product, and then I should want to enter those details. Those details are used for me to generate the bill. That's it. So these are the information he has from here his end. So in backend what we will do, so those data we cannot consider like those are 100% quality data. Correct, right? So To overcome those data we will take into some Excel file or CSV file, or if that particular store maintain any database, so that data will be go and store in that particular database. From that we are like doing some data quality checks, where like to identify some duplicates, where to identify some null values, because see, we have defined some rules on that particular data to get the quality from that particular bad data, where whichever the data that collected by end user, those data we call it as bad data or meaningless data or something else. We can name it whatever feasible for us. So that meaningless data, we need to define some transformations rules, whichever required for us. So to make a meaningful information from the data. So once the quality of the data maintained in some way maintained, then that data we need to store in a some particular place where we call it as a staging. So to define these transformations rules, this in ETL, this T means transformations. That was came into picture now. So extraction is nothing but we will be collecting the data from some bad data or some not qualified or whichever we call that data we are extracted and did some transformations. Transformations is nothing but whichever business requirement. So we are not the developer is not the responsible person to define the transformations. User should give us to define some transformations. Based on that, whichever transformations required, we will do that one, and we will load the data into some staging area. You got my point, right?
Yes.
Till now, any questions you have? Okay. So now where we are like we are extracting this bad data and transforming those data and loading into staging. And after staging, so this staging contains some quality data. But from that quality data, we need to define some business rules. Like we need to our final end goal is to be it should this data should be transferred to some data warehouse system. Okay, so for that purpose we need to have some like transformations logics and some business rules like what all are the recent data, what all are the updated data, what all are the old data, what all are the and when this particular record was updated, when this record was came initially, what is the product name, who is the owner of that particular product, and who is the customer of that particular product, what is the sales amount of that particular product. So all of this information, okay, so these information actual ETL process will be started from staging to final target. Here target means is nothing but data warehouse itself. So there we are from staging to actual transformations logic. Then we are loading the data into data warehouse. If it is a data warehouse project or data integration project, then only this data warehouse will be coming to picture. So this is how the ETL process will work. And to do all this ETL process, how BODS is plays an important role here. That we will be going to discuss in this session. So that is the a small overview of SAP bots and ETL as well. So now coming to like as I mentioned, let's see here by using this BODS we can do data integration. Okay, this data integration and data quality, sorry, data quality and data processing and data profiling. Data integration is nothing but like from staging to final target, right? So that process we will call it as a data integration. Data quality is nothing but like from end user, whatever the information that we are getting, whatever the file or whatever the data that we are getting, to maintain a quality of the data, whatever the rules or whatever the business rules that business people has provided to us. So that type of rules we have maintained. That type of rules we already defined it to maintain the data quality. So that is nothing but data quality. Data processing. Sometimes there is no such rules was needed to there is no such rule was defined. We need to collect the whatever the data that was coming to us, so that data we will directly load it into target table. So this is nothing but like replication or data processing from one system to another system. That is what that data processing was. Data profiling is nothing but to do the validation of the data, to do some basic checks even if we load the data. So whatever the rules that we define, so we need to profile the data. So that is how the data profiling will work. So this is what the BODS, how BODS will do all this process. We will discuss in later sessions. And as I mentioned, like BODS is nothing but business object data services. So it was an SAP product. It has highly secured and it can connect to various systems like SAP or non-SAP systems. Okay, so this is all about like a little overview of SAP bots. Till now, I don't have any questions. Shall we move to next slide?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I told you, right? There is some little history about bots. Initially, bots was owned by SAP, and it has two products, which is like business object data quality and business object data integration. So to combine those, okay, we have now SAP bots. As you see in the second point, business objects acquired by SAP. Both of these products were renamed as SAP BODQ, Business Object Data Quality, SAP BODI, Business Objects Data Integration. These two tools are combined, and to combine this tool, we have now SAP BODS. BODS is nothing but Business Objects Data Services. This was a little history about SAP BODS. Okay, now the latest version of SAP BODS was 4.2. So that was the latest version. It has all the features which are required for ETL. Even we can make use of Python coding, and even we can have our user-friendly script languages, whichever user-friendly only. So we can create our own script to process the BODS job. So all these concepts we will discuss in later sessions. Till now, anyone have any doubts? If it is little faster, please let me know so that I will go slowly. Okay. Shall we move to next slide?
Yes.
Yeah. So now coming to architecture. Yeah. So in every tool, like we need to, like BODS is an ETL tool in which it will store some data inside it. Data is nothing but which is not the actual data. It was something, we can call it as a metadata. Metadata is nothing but like some information about the whatever it is. It might be some connection information, it might be some job information, it might be some transformation information, it might be some workflow information or data flow information. So all these informations, we call it as a metadata in BODS. So there are different level of metadata. If we come to data warehouse, that metadata is different, and if we come to BODS, this metadata was different, but name itself what it indicates, like it will store some information which will be like temporary purpose. So from that we can get the actual data or actual information from the systems, and we can do the transformations and we can load the data into some other system. So in BODS, here if you see, this repository will plays an important role. Repository, what it does means, repository, it's nothing but it will store the metadata. Here metadata is nothing but, whenever I say metadata in BODS language, metadata is nothing but connection details. If you want to access some file formats, it will store the connectivity or particular part of that particular file. Or if we created some user defined functions, those metadata, and workflow names, workflows, data flow names. So these all are comes under metadata. So repository will store that metadata inside it, and these metadata will be configured with some database. Whenever we create some repository, right, it will associated with some database. Sorry, someone asking something.
No,
Okay, yeah. So whenever we configure this repository, right? So this repository will associated with few of the, sorry, one of the database. That database might be HANA or MS SQL, whatever the database that are available in market. So we can take any one of the database. We can configure this particular repository on top of that particular database, where it will store the all the metadata information like job server information and job scheduling information and all over the information it will store it in the backend. That will discuss when we discussing about how we configure the repository. Okay, now coming to this architecture, this repository will be connected to both management console and designer. Okay, so this repository, it will store some metadata. This metadata, where it will get from the designer. Designer is what it was the workplace where we can design our jobs, workflows, data flows, tables, files, and transformations whichever required. By using this designer we can implement all of them. So our implementation was done now. For example, we have extracted some data from some source. It might be some database table. From that database table, we are doing some transformations, making use of some query transformations or some other transformations. We are loading the data into some target table. So after we implemented this data flow, we are good to run that particular data flow. Okay, so whenever we save the job, it will automatically store this metadata information through repository into the database. So that information already saved inside the database. So whenever we want to trigger the job, we can trigger the job or we can run the job from designer or from the management console. So whenever we try to trigger a job or run a job while selecting particular job server, so what will happen in backend, this job start execution. So before it start execution, it will communicate to the repository like my job was started processing, so please give me the details from the database, whatever the metadata that was stored inside the database. Please provide those details to me so that I can process the data from one system to another system. Then here we have triggered the job. For example, even here also we can trigger. Let's discuss about if we trigger the job in designer. So whenever we trigger the job in designer, it will come to this particular repository. It will check for the metadata through the jobs metadata, and then this metadata will be collected from the database table, backend database table, and this repository information will goes to the job server, and it will this job server will call this engines. Okay, so these engine will start processing of the job. So designer to repository and repository to by via job server, it will call to the engine. This engine this engine will start processing of the job and sending back a signal through the job server to the repository to execute the job, which will we can see output of the designer. Like in output window, we can see the trace log, monitor log, and error log. We will discuss about all this trace log, monitor log, error log. What is the use of those later in our later discussion. So this is how it will work. If from designer to repository, repository to job server, this job server will communicate to the engines. This engine will start processing and it will send a signal back to the job server, and then it will pass the repository From this repository, it will send the signal to both designer and management console. You might have a question like from designer, if we execute the job, it will send to the repository and then job server and then engine. Whenever engine send back a signal to the job server, it will send to the repository, and from repository, how it could be send the signal back to management console and designer. Does anyone have questions in your mind? Okay, so this repository will send the signal to whichever the signal that it gets from the engine. That signal will pass to the management console and designer. This management console, even we can see the job status here. From the designer also we can see the job status here. This is how it was designed in backend. And this repository, for suppose if I am a user, okay, if I was working in a BODS project, I might have my personal repository, or I have some team of 5 members. So each person have different repositories. We can create a number of repositories. It depends on database, what we call the database size in simple words. So based on the server size, we can create a number of repositories for us. So each repository we can have some password as well. We can, to avoid the security reasons, we can have passwords for all these repositories. So yeah, from there we can do that one. And coming to address server, dictionaries, and directories. So these all are like something whenever we create some real-time jobs. Okay, like whenever we are connecting some real-time servers, and from there we are processing the data. So from there, engine will collect all the information from these two information, where address server will play important role here. Like whenever we configure something, those information will be stored here. That information coming via address server, and it will move to the engine, from job server to repository. This repository again will connect to management console and designer, like this. And access server, like so in SAP there are some systems we cannot connect directly, where like some systems, like if some MS SQL server was installed on some other machine, where we cannot connect it directly through the network. So that time what we will do, we will make use of some ODBC connectivity or something. That time this access server will be plays an important role. So this access server is a middleware between repository and real-time clients. So if any signals comes to this access server, it will goes to that particular system, whichever configured. From there, it will call the real-time clients. Real-time clients is nothing but like some ODBC drivers or something we can consider for now. So by using those drivers through this access server, it will send the signal back to the repository, and then job will start the processing. So this is what the architecture of BODS. So anyone have any questions till now?
So Venkat, for example, if you want to like connect to OData, so in this case, the access server is, I mean, act as a main role, right? So
Yes.
because there is no like any kind, I mean, there is no inbuilt, I mean, providers or connections. So then we use the
No,
ODBC.
we need to install some drivers, right, in our
Yes.
system.
Yes.
So those driver information will be saved in our access server. So from this access server, we can access other systems,
Okay.
like that it was.
So you mentioned like the engines, these part address server, these part will, I mean, only for real-time jobs, or like for example, I developed like one job in my designer. So in that case, it will not, I mean, uh, engine.
No, that time engines is nothing but like it was something like it will send the signals from signals to the repository to start some process.
Okay.
For example,
So
see, okay, tell me.
so basically, I mean, this is not this is you can design in the like a designer or like real time anything. It will, I mean, the agents will work, right? So or this
Sorry, your voice is breaking.
the agents part will work on the like only for the real time jobs or like not for the development part. So
No, it was something like for all it will work. The
okay,
actual execution will start from engines only.
okay, either it is I mean static
It will batch job or a real time job, whatever it may be. So like whenever you do development, right?
yes,
So if you save the job, whatever development you done, if you save that one, then only it will store that metadata into repository. And that metadata, when it will call, right, whenever you want to execute the job, it needs some information, right? Where the
yes,
job was, which project that the particular job on, like what all are the transformations it was used, what all are the objects is nothing but workflows, data flows, whatever it was used. So those information backend it will save into some database table. So those information it will collect from the repository. That information it will send to the job server. Job server will contact with engines. That engines, once all the validation was done, then it will send the signal back to job server, from job server to repository. This
okay,
repository we can see the job execution status. Even in designer we can see, or in management console also we can see the job status, whether it was running successfully, how many records till now it was processed, and if there any error or warnings we can see that one as well, both in designer and management console we can see. But later we will discuss how that was happening, and
so
what is the advantage in designer, what is the advantage in management console.
so the metadata is stored in the table format. Like for example, you suppose you created one data store connection in a designer, the connection also it will store in the repository in a
Connection information it will store it in the backend metadata table.
okay. We can we change those values in the metadata or no? So we
No,
can
if
go to
you
we
change,
can go to the table and we can update some
no,
values.
yeah,
No.
even that can also possible if you have that admin role, and those all are comes under admin task. Okay,
Mhm.
so if you have that much of information, we can directly change into the table, and once the changes are done, same will be replicated to your designer
De-
area.
designer area. Okay.
Yeah, and you can do both ways. If you want to change that in a table level, yeah, you can do. If you want to change in the designer, the backend
Designer.
also, the table also change automatically. It will do the updation.
Okay.
That is how it works.
Mhm.
Any other questions? So does anyone knows like how this process will work, on which technology they have used? Does anyone have any idea backend which technology they have developed this tool? Any guess?
It's a Java.
No. Come on, guess it. Yeah, guess is nothing wrong in guess, right?
Is it SQL?
No. Any other guess? Okay, let me tell you. So this complete tool works on ABAP. Even
Okay.
ABAP is a programming language which was from SAP itself. It has all the functionalities, like similar functionalities whichever Java has. So this tool works on ABAP coding. If you
Okay.
know ABAP coding, if you want to do some changes inside the tool, always you can do. That's why it was like a very powerful tool.
So if you require any customization, we can write a web code and we can do that part, right?
Yeah, we can do, but that was maybe that way I haven't tried, but it can be possible. I have whatever knowledge I have, that can be possible. But we cannot build a custom transformations whichever required by using this above coding.
Mhm.
That how you can check, right? So whenever you want to like transport one job from another one environment to another environment, whenever you do ATL extraction, like ATL export, like from one environment, like for suppose we have developed something in our development environment, that code should be moved to production till production. So in between UAT will be there, from UAT to production. So that time we have three ways we can do. One is from like repository to repository we can do. Another way is like ATL file we can do, .atl file. Another way is like through central repository. Okay, so whenever you do ATL file, right, that time you can see the ABAP coding, and you can modify if you have ABAP knowledge. You can modify that and you can import that file to other environment or the same environment as well. That we will discuss in later sessions.
So the backend code is ABAP,
Yeah, it will run on ABAP
but
programming.
you cannot you can enhance that ABAP code, but what happened to the designer flow?
Design flow will stay as usual until you import the like enhancer code inside the designer.
But isn't it that's not a best practice to change the
No, that
ABAP
is not
code?
a, that's
Yeah, it's
not a
not
best practice.
recommended
It's not
because then
recommended as well. Yeah.
yeah, because then you know you could damage
Yes.
the design flow of your ETL.
Design flow, or it will damage the functionality as well. So that was not recommended from SAP itself.
But if you know ABAP, you can use it to
Yeah.
read the back
Yeah.
end. But that's
Yep.
all. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and also like whenever you want to extract data from SAP ECC systems, we can easily connect from designer to SAP ECC system by using like server and username and password details. So whenever we connect it to the SAP ECC system in designer, we can directly extract the data. But when there is a huge amount of data, for suppose let's take Mara table in the SAP ECC system, it has huge amount of data. So this data, when we extract, we should make use of ABAP data flow inside the designer. That we will discuss later. What is ABAP data flow? How it will be useful for us. So while making use of that particular ABAP data flow, so from SAP ECC system, sorry, SAP, some SAP system is there. We need to generate the ABAP code directly. We can generate the ABAP code from this designer. That option also there. So this ABAP code can be transferred from one SAP landscape to another SAP landscape. If you want any modifications, if you have very good knowledge in ABAP coding, even that can also possible.
So we got the before acquired the SP bots to SAP. So before we have a two different right. One is the quality and other one is some other. There is a two different
Yeah,
name. So before SAP also is the backend is the ABAP only or the different technology.
it was ABAP, I guess, but I'm not sure about that. I'm guessing it should be ABAP.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions? Shall we move to
Yeah,
next slide? Sorry, please
Venkat,
go ahead.
Shravan here.
Yeah.
When it comes to repository, you are saying that central repository.
Mhm.
So is it different from this picture?
Yeah, that one is different. Here we won't see the central repository
So, okay,
because
my question.
central repository. Yeah, okay, please go ahead.
Central
So,
repo is for admin, right?
It's not about admin. Even developer can use that central repository. It was like, some version management. In simple
Yeah.
way, if you want to
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
the particular central repository should have some version. For example, you developed
The
some code
version
in the,
control is
yeah,
there.
version control. Yeah, if you developed something initially, you need to transport. The best way is like from local repository to central repository and then local repository. That's how the standard way of transport will do in SAP bots.
But that's
Okay.
through import export, right?
Yeah, import export also we can do, but if you want to maintain some versions, for suppose, okay, initial version was
Are
transport to
you
production.
are you going to cover the how to transport from
Yeah,
local?
even I will tell you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
even I
Okay.
will cover those, but just giving you some basic overview how it should work from central repository. So initially you developed and it was moved through central repository till production. And next time some change request was raised by some user or customer. Okay. So that time what you will do, again directly you can come into development and whatever the changes that has requested, you can do the changes. And so once the changes are done and once you're done with the validation and user also confirmed to move that one to production, so that time what you will do, you no need to transport all the development part in again into production. Okay. So that time whatever the changes, wherever you change your job flows, the only those flows you can transport to production. And whenever you transport, right, for example, in single data flow you made some changes. Okay, so that data flow only you want to uh, transport from development to UAT system. So in that case, if you do export, right, it won't either you can export a single data flow, but that is not recommended. That is not a standard way. And if you want to do this transport through central repository, right, what will happen? Your previous code was there, right? Whatever the data flow it has previously, so that data flow will be there. And whenever you go from central repository, the latest code also will be there in the central repository. So you might have question like, what is the use of maintaining two data flow in the central repository? Does anyone have this question in your mind?
Yes, 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 Venkat.
Yeah, yeah. For example, let's say your initial data flow was there, and you made some changes in the latest version. Like after the change request, the latest data flow also there. Okay, so due to some reason, user don't want the latest change and you forget about that. Whatever the changes that you made, you are not 100% sure to remove those changes. You don't have the initial version with you. So that time, this older version will be there, right? If you do get latest from the central, that older version can come to your local repository. You can easily run the job. That's why it was called as a version management. From initial version to till whatever the latest version of the objects, it will contain all the details, and we can see who made the changes, and we can see the comments when it was changed. Everything we can see in the central repository.
So in general, when I work on a designer, so if I
Mhm.
create a job flows or workflows or data flows, okay. So now I made this change. All these changes will be stored in a local repository, not in the central repository, right?
Yeah, whenever you made changes, it will store in the local repository. There is no any version management in the local repository.
Okay. Now I'm working on some data flow, and
Mhm.
all of a sudden I need to take a leave, and that needs to be completed by someone in the team. So
Okay.
is that possible to someone who can access my local repository?
No. Y- Until and unless you provide the information like credentials to the other person, it
So
will
credential means,
not. Credentials means like whenever you log into the repository, it will ask some password.
right?
So that password, if you provide to some other person, that time he can log in into your repository and he can do the changes.
So this credential should be an individual credentials, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Can't
that
it
is the
be
one
written?
way.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the one way. And if you do not want to share the password to other person, what you can do is like you can place these changes to central repository. Like you can do checkout, check-in, and
Mhm.
whoever wants that particular changes to be continued to the next day, he can take this particular data flow from the central repository and he can work on that.
I
Okay.
think that's the I think that's the best practice. That's you shouldn't be handing over your
Credentials.
Yes,
credentials to anyone
yes.
to access your local
Yeah,
repo.
because we don't know like who will do the
Correct.
what type of things in our local repository. If something goes wrong, people will ask us. No one want this type of
Yeah.
explanation to the users.
Or if you want someone to debug your work, import that to the
Their
central
local repository.
yeah,
Yeah, you need to import that into central repository. He needs to collect the
and
latest version
export
from the,
to your
yeah, he needs to export from the central repository to that particular user local repository and then start
right.
working on that and he can do the debugging, whatever it might be. And whatever he does, right, it won't affect whatever the code there in your local repository. That won't affect.
Yeah. Understood. And now, suppose if we are doing an implementation, so
Okay.
I have given some project that needs to be to create a job flows, workflows, and data flows, and this
Mhm.
has some time limit. And so I can't say that tomorrow I might work or may not work. So today,
Mhm.
what my job is to do, create a job flow. So I did that, and the next part I would like to share this to someone. So if this scenario in general in any organization, how this will be going to work. So on daily basis, by end of the day, should I need to move these developments to the central repository?
No, that is not the case.
Okay.
Either you
So
should give the ATL file to other person or you should place that into central repository. This is how the two ways we can do. There is no any other alternate
So,
way.
so Venkat, admin can access the local repositories,
Yeah,
right?
admin can has access. Admin has all the access. He can do whatever he wants. I'm just talking about like if I was a user and if another developer was there, okay, if I want to send it from my end to his end, then these are the two ways. Admin can do anything. He can delete your repository. He can delete your objects. He can delete your jobs. He can make changes. Anything he can do. Admin. But as a developer to developer, I'm saying,
Okay.
yeah. Any other questions?
So basically, the jobs will come in save under the ATL file format. Whatever we create in the job in the designer, the it will create in the backend. It will create with the ATL file format, right?
Yeah, ATL file format only. Yeah, dot ATL.
Okay.
Yep.
so while doing this, are there any scenarios like corruption of our flows, data flows, or job flows, or workflows? Either it in a central repository or else the
No,
local
there
repository.
should not be till now like haven't faced such scenarios because
Mm.
see our repository will not crash. Sometimes like some downtimes might be there. Some upgrade if happens, some downtimes will be there. Some of the functionality won't work properly. But
Okay.
crashing of repository or crashing of central repository until and unless the database is okay, then until and unless we won't get any type of issues. If unknown person deleted some metadata from the database table, then only it will impact on our repository, local repository or central repository. Unless and until there is no any impact on any
Okay.
like repository or central repository.
Okay. So in local repository, apart from admin and the specific developer, no other person can view what he is doing,
No.
right?
Yes. That is the main advantage of this BODS.
Okay.
Because each developer has his own workplace, we can say, in our scenario. I cannot see your workplace, you cannot see my workplace, whatever I did. That's how it will work.
Okay. And in management console, uh,
Hmm?
can we develop workflows? Can we design a
No,
workflows?
no,
Yes, so
nothing is possible. It's just only graphical representation. We can view only. We cannot make any changes until and unless it will comes to scheduling of a job, or if you want to delete some scheduler, or if you want to restart our real-time services or job servers, and yeah, error log, monitor log, these things we can see. But development work, 0%. We can't do anything in the management console.
okay. In management console, if I see an error log,
Hmm?
is there a way I can fix it over there, or else do I need
No,
to come back to
no.
designer?
You
I
need,
need to
you
come back
must
to
come
designer.
back to designer. There is
Oh,
no any way to you can make any changes, because see, in management console, whenever you go to trace log or monitor log or error log, right, in backend it will store a .txt file. This information will be stored in a .txt file. That information will be visible in your management console. So you cannot make any changes. If you want to make any changes in backend, you can go to the text file and you can make the changes, in which you don't have any permission. Admin should give the permission to you. If you have admin permission, you can do anything. Otherwise, if you're a developer, you don't have whatever the whatever the access required for a developer, those type of access only you have. In some other some organizations, in for production environment also, they won't give you write access. They should give you only read access. Only in development environment only you have all the edit options. Edit options means like whatever required for development, not all the options.
okay. Suppose if I have in production, if I have some data which is not acceptable in system to process the job in
Yeah, due to
production.
some issue, it was failing.
Yeah. So now
Okay.
I would like to fix that. So again, I will come back to designer. I know
Yes.
I mean,
No,
where's the
if
source
you
of the
have
error?
if you have edit option, right, in designer level, if you have edit option or write options, right, you can
Hmm.
directly make the changes and you can do the reverse transport as well. If your user or if your client acceptable that. If not, as per standard process, you should come to the development, you should make the changes, you should test the changes, and again you need to transport that to production.
But the production data will, I mean, there is a lag in
Yeah, obviously,
availability
in
of the
that
data,
case,
right?
yeah, in that case, you can communicate to the users. There is no any other alternate ways.
Okay.
Because if you have edit option, like write option, write access to that particular production server, right? Production server or production system, then you can directly make the changes if user was accepted that. For suppose, you have developer some flows. So
Yeah.
in that particular table in development, 10 fields are there from source. Okay. So when it comes to production, only 9 fields are coming. One field value was missing there and it was not able to load the data. That is the issue. Even user has accepted that, okay, production only 9 fields are there. So you just need to load the 9 fields data, and 10th field you can give any default value. Like that user has communicated to you. So that time you can directly make the changes
Okay.
in the production, and this production code you can do the reverse transport till development local. Even that can be possible.
Okay. So
Any
if
other?
the
Yeah.
if the issue is in the source itself, and if
Hmm.
it is going to take a long time, and this
Hmm.
job need to be available on a, suppose consider this is a scenario, on a month
Hmm.
end or first week of the month, and the
Hmm.
data need to be available for the users. So in this
Hmm.
scenario, user and the source itself, we have an issue.
Hmm. See, that
And
is not related to tool, right? In designer, we won't do anything.
okay,
Yeah, see, whatever issue is there inside the designer. For suppose,
yeah,
uh,
let me complete this. Let me
yeah, yeah,
complete.
okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So I identified the source itself. There is an issue.
Hmm.
Okay. but the source who can make the changes, he is not available. But
Hmm.
is there any alternate way? I got the permission immediately to make it changes in our designer itself.
Hmm.
Can I do it? And the next day, the user will,
Tell
when
me the
the
exact
person,
issue. Tell me the
okay,
source side exact issue so that I can answer your question.
okay. Suppose, yeah, we are getting some third-party data, and that is clubbed into our SAP data, our
Hmm.
source. Okay,
Hmm.
and that third party mentioned as a physical year period instead of 2022, he mentioned as a 2018.
Hmm.
Okay, and for that we have some movement type or some info object types. I mean document types or some item types with a particular specific item types. That person entered this data as a 2018. We identified that.
Okay.
That person, when I contacted, he is not available, and he's on a leave and he's on a vacation for 5 or 6 days now.
Okay.
And I got the approval from higher management to make this change if possible in our designer.
Yes, that can be possible.
That can be
So
possible.
instead of 2018 data, you just want to update that to 2022.
Yes,
Correct, right?
to a specific item type or document type or building
Correct.
type.
Whatever the records
Oh,
out of, like,
and the
let's
next
consider.
and
Yeah.
okay, and when the source when the concerned person from the source team, I mean like the person on the source, he is
Hmm.
going to change that when he's come back. So will there
Hmm.
be an impact for us? Do we need to revert back the logic which we have implemented in designer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. For your scenario, I will tell you in correct way. For suppose, like, yeah, whatever, like, for suppose there is a date column. In that date column, you expected that it should be as 2022. Instead of 2022, it came as 2018. Obviously, that is a wrong data. So that data you just want to change from the designer, correct?
Yes.
So in that case, yeah, you can make use of any of the inbuilt functions. You can do like replace substring that by making use of that function. Instead of 2018, you can do 2022. Wherever 2018 was there, you can replace that to 2022, and your issue got resolved for now. Now what
Yeah.
happens? That particular concerned person was came from source side. So he has all the conversations, and he has made all the changes whatever required from his end. And he sent an email like whatever the changes that needed I made from my end, and you can revert back your changes. That time what you will do, this central repository will do your work. You can
Oh,
take the latest code, you can do the get latest, so that your previous code will be replaced into your local repository or production local repository.
okay.
That's
I
how
got
it will
it.
work. Yeah.
Okay. And could you please explain these scenarios again? Dictionaries and directories and address server.
Okay. See, whenever, like, yeah, so whenever you are connecting to a real-time server, right? Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Yeah, yeah. So whenever you are connecting to some real-time servers, right, there continuously it should connect to the system. So in backend, what no, what happens, you know? So whenever you configure some data store, it will store the data metadata inside the table. So it doesn't obviously checking for the status of the connection, whether it was working or not. All the time, BODS tool won't check. Whenever you trigger the job, that time only it will goes to the metadata, and it will catch the credentials, and it will go to the particular system, send the signal. If the signal back coming into back, then it will process the job. If the bad signal or wrong credentials or system was not available, the job obviously will fail. Okay, so that's how it will work on general connections. General connections is nothing but some database or some file format, some file locations, that type of connections. So when it comes to real-time services, you know, that time it always connected to the system, like, in milliseconds also it will connect to the particular system from our repository or designer, whatever we call it as. So that time it will go to, it will save this server information, whatever the real-time job does, right? So that information, real-time system information, that it will store it in the dictionary or directories. That information it will get from the address server and it will throw to the engine. From this engine through the job server, it will goes to the repository. This dictionary and directories are nothing but like real time. Whenever we implement some real time jobs, it will store that system information. Even like a backend table also it will store, and this dictionaries and directories also it will store to make the speed connectivity, or like there is no disturbance between the real time jobs. Any other questions?
So now, what the transport landscape system for this? How it
Trans-
works?
Transport means like how do you want to transport it from one environment to another
Yeah,
environment, you're asking? Yeah,
yeah.
and as usual process only. Through central repository it can possible. Through
Mhm.
ATL file it can be possible. Through repository to repository also it can be possible.
Okay.
Yeah,
So transports will happen from central repository. Okay.
that is the standard way. SAP was recommended through central repository.
Mhm.
If it is an emergency transport, you can do through ATL. You can do through repository to repository. That can also possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Venkat, for example, in a central repository, so one job have a multiple versions. Okay, we have a 2, 3 versions we have in the central repository. Okay, when you
Mhm.
schedule a real-time job, like which version it will consider? Like we need to mention, we need to take the particular version, or it will take the default or latest version.
No, like like do you have idea about like history of a table? Like that only it will store the information from that, whichever you require, right? That particular object you can take into your local repository.
Not, I'm not talking about the local reports. I'm scheduling a job. If real-time job, suppose you schedule a one job. Okay, so we have multiple versions.
No, see, no, it won't affect to like that is different. Your thought was different. Anything scheduling or anything that we want to do, we can do it from local repository. There is no involvement of central repository. It will just store the object information.
Okay.
That's it. Local repository is different. Central repository is different. Central repository, it will store your metadata. Metadata is nothing but data flow, connection, like data stores, file formats, and tables, and what we call custom functions. So these information it will store inside the central repository. So it won't. We cannot do scheduling. We cannot do development in central repository.
Okay.
I will show you so that you can get clear idea about that.
Oh,
What is
okay.
local repository and central repository? There you
Okay.
can get the clear picture. I
Okay.
understood your question, but now I know like whatever explanation I gave in to you, that is not 100% clear your question. Any other questions? Shall we move to next slide then?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, yeah. So repository. I told you right in backend there is some tables are there, system objects, source, target metadata, and transformations rules. So these all are the backend process. Whatever happens at the repository level. For suppose like whenever you create one job, right? For example, batch job. That time what will happen? Until and unless you save the job in your local repository, it won't store any data inside in the backend table. Data is nothing but metadata. It won't store any metadata in the backend table until and unless you saved your work. Okay, so that is how a repository will work. And repositories, like, if one person have access to one repository, he doesn't have access to login into another repository until and unless admin has provided access for him. Okay, so that is how it will work. And coming to repository, for example, there is a development environment in which there are some 5 to 6, okay, let's consider 5 repositories are there, and these 5 repositories can have same job server can be assigned to that particular repository. All the 5 repositories assigned to same job server. Okay, so you can assign different job servers as well, but you should have some access to that particular repository whenever you trigger a job. Let me explain it with an example. For suppose in my repository, I have developed some job, and that job was successfully running in one job server, whichever I have access in my local repository in development environment. So due to some reason, I have exported that ATL file and I given to some other developer. And in that developer local repository, he doesn't have access to this particular job server. Okay, so whenever he executes the job, it was saying like could not connect to the system, or job server error, or something, some system defined error was coming. So in that case, what admin will do, he will assign one particular job server, whatever I have, the same job server he can assign to the other developer as well, so that he can run the job. Because in few job servers, what will happen, whenever they configure the job server, right, they will give all the access to the particular server, or they can like hide few of the access to particular job server. But a single job server can be shared among all the repositories, all the local repositories. Okay, whoever developer working on the whichever repository. And the second point is, like, a particular local repository can have n number of job servers. A job server is nothing but like it will transfer the job communication details between engine and repository and management console. That is what job server will do. And if it has missed any information in between, it will fail the job. That is how the third point was. Any questions still here? Shall we move to next slide then?
Yes, you can.
Yeah. So now coming to management console. So management console, I will show you the UI in some other sessions, but these all are the options. Let me explain these options, and later on we can move on to management console. How does it looks like and how does it works? What all are the things that we can do management console? So as you understood, like, right, management console, it's nothing but a UI only, in which we can monitor the jobs. We can see the job status, whether it was running, whether it was success, whether it was failed. If it is failed, what is the error log, what is the monitor log, what is the trace log, and also we can delete any job from here. We can schedule a job, we can like what we called, we can export a job. Export means like designer export is different. This export was different. So this export is nothing but like some batch file export we can do from management console. Batch file is nothing but like some Windows command. If you want to run the job by using this batch files, we can do. Even that option also available in management console. And we can schedule a job multiple times a day, or like weekly or monthly or daily, whatever we want we can do. For this scheduling, there is no any other third party tool also required. If in your project, if you want to make use of like third party scheduling tools, yeah, of course you can make use. Some configurations were needed. That configurations will be done by admin, and once that configuration done, you can do scheduling from third party tool as well. But SAP has its own internal scheduler inside it. So from there we can do all of the job. So that things we can later we can discuss later sessions. So now coming to management console, impact and linear analysis. So this impact and linear analysis, administration, auto documentation, operational dashboard, data validation, data quality, data reports. So these all are the options that are available whenever you are logging into a management console. Now coming to impact and linear analysis. So this impact and linear analysis is nothing but like it will give you some metadata information. So other than that, there is no much use of impact and linear analysis. And you won't use in your project also this option, impact and linear analysis. It's just some theoretical knowledge. If you have, then that is more than enough. So if any knowledge required, so admin should have that knowledge, that is enough. So impact and linear analysis, whenever you are working on a development project or support project, so this option nowhere you will use. So till now I have around 11 years of experience. Till now I haven't used this impact and linear analysis in my IT career. And coming to administration, this was the most important option. This was the most like the most used options in the management console. Administration, from this administration many things we can do. First thing is like, for suppose you have access for like 7 to 8 repositories. Sorry. So in that 7 to 8 repositories, if you want to connect through this administration only, you can connect. And if you want to see any of the job status, so from this administration we can do. And if you want to start or stop any of the real-time services or any of the job servers, so from this you can do. Sorry. Yeah. And if you want to do, you know, to see the trace log, monitor log, and error log, you can do it from the administration. And what all are the options? Like if you want to schedule a job through this administration, you can do. So there is many options are available in administration. Whenever we discuss, whenever I will show you the management console, that time we can discuss more about this administration. As an overview point of view, I'm just telling what all are the options that it has contained. Now coming to auto documentation. Here, like see, whenever you are working on a project, right? So whenever you develop some jobs, so you need some documentation. Correct, right? User needs some documentation. What is the technical documentation? How the transformations was placed here, how the flow was moving, what all are the workflows, what all are the data flows, how it was moving. You no need to do a manual work. If you want to do, you can do. But we have one options, auto documentation, where it will provide, if you need some jobs documentation, you can select the job, and if you do export, it will give some word file or doc file or pdf format, whatever format that you want, you can it can give you given to you. So This auto documentation is nothing but the operational documentation. It was like not it was not that much high level. It can give the information about data flows, workflows, job description. Once you get this auto documentation document, whatever you want to make changes, it will reduce your manual work. That is the one thing I can say from this auto documentation. So this is how the auto documentation was. Coming to operational dashboard. Yeah, this operational dashboard is nothing but like see, there are like a couple of jobs running in a repository. For example, in a production repository, there are like some hundreds of jobs are scheduled. Like due to some reasons, few of the job was failed, few of the job was having warnings, few of the job has succeed, and few of the job was still running. Because whenever you implement a job, it might, if it has huge amount of data and a huge amount of transformations, like uh, very much of transformations was defined inside a job, then it will obviously take some time. Some time means like it might run for 24 hours as well, or it might run for like 12 hours or 18 hours, whatever it may be. So that status you cannot see in the what we call the administration. Like batch job status we cannot see, because if any other job starts after this job, then this job will go down itself. Again you need to move on to the next page, next page, next page. So how it will work, I will explain you in the later sessions. But if you want to see the statics of the jobs, you can see it from the operational dashboard. Like how many jobs are still running, how many jobs are completed, how many jobs are failed, how many jobs are completed with warnings. That information you can find in the dashboard. And data validation. Data validation is nothing but like it was similar like in designer also you can do manually, in management console also you can do. Like for suppose you have defined some transformations rules and you want to see the data. Like after you are extracting the data from a source, you define some transformations rules. And one second, sorry. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, data validation, yeah. So from designer, you can compare both source and target, whether our transformations rules, all of them are working fine or not. From the designer, you can see, but the same functionality, you can see it from the management console as well. You can compare both source and target tables, and you can do the manual data validation. And if you define some rules also, you can do that one in the data validation tab. Coming to data quality and data reports, like if someone of you have knowledge on BI tools, right? How it will shows like for example, in this column, if you can define some aggregate functions, it will show some graphical representations, right? So that type of graphical representations you can show in the data quality and data reports. But in latest version, this option might not available. In BODS 4.2, it might not available. So guys, till now, any questions regarding management console?
Venkat, can you, explain again the data validation part actually?
Yeah, data validation, it is nothing but like in designer, so whenever you import the table, so that table you can drag into your workspace, and you can see till 1,000 records, whatever the limit that has given by admin.
Mhm.
Okay, so you can see top 1,000 or top 10,000 or top 1 lakh, whatever it may be, whatever feasible for you, you can see. And in the same case, after the job was completed, right, it will load the data into target table. So even the target table also you can see the data. So you
Yes.
can compare the data whether your this thing transformations rules are worked fine or not. You can define some temporary filter conditions. Okay, for suppose you identified like there are some columns, it should not be null, it should not contain null values, it should contain not null values, it should have some values. Okay, in source side you have filtered out one of the record, the same record was there in the target table or not, you can check that from the designer.
Okay.
Okay, the same functionality you can do it in the management console as well, data validation.
Okay. So in the UI we can select we can apply some filters, and
Yes,
we can
yes,
check
yes.
the same record in source, and we can check in the same in the target. We can compare what is the source value and what is the target
Yeah.
value. Some.
Yep, that can be do, but this data validation is not recommended as well. This is the option was given by SAP, so
Yes.
many of the people they doesn't know about this option, and this was not that much convenient as compared to the repository options.
Correct.
So maximum people will go to the repository options. This was there, okay, in some rare case, sometime like we could not log in into designer or we don't have designer access, right, that time we can do this data
Ye-
validation.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other questions? And one more point I forgot to tell you, like, out of these six options, maximum you will be use these options, like 90% you will use this option, and 5% for this and 5% for this. So all of your work, whatever required for your project, you can do it from administration. Like if you are going to support a project, then 100% you can do it from this administration itself.
Mhm.
This auto documentation, it was only for like to avoid some manual effort from your side. It will helpful you for only 60 to 70%, remaining 30% you need to type yourself. Operational dashboard, if you are like there are long running jobs, if you want to see overall job status or overall job status in a pictorial representation, then you can go for operational dashboard. Maximum of people won't go for this one. They should rely on this administration part only. So these first option and last two options you won't use in your real-time projects. You will go for administration most of the times, and remaining two options, if you still have time, if you want to have interest on those things, so these will be helpful. Otherwise, these two options also you won't use. Only this option mainly you will use in your project.
Hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? Shall we move to next slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now coming to job server. I told you na, like job server, it will acts like a middleware. Like how I can explain you. Okay. So you have idea about like cache memory, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So can somebody explain me how a cache memory will work?
So I think first time it will the data will load into the cache memory. Suppose next time some multiple people accessing the same data something, so it will take from the cache, right?
Yeah. Like the main purpose of cache memory, like some temporary data
Tem-
storing.
correct.
Correct, right? So
Correct.
here the job server also works like similar itself. It will store the metadata information inside this job server, and it will do the signal transformation between our designer through the repository to the engine. Engine was there, right, to start the job. So that is the main purpose of this job server. Okay, and that is the first advantage. And the second advantage was, right, so we have multiple source and multiple target systems, right? So that metadata information already stored in the backend table, some SQL or whatever database. So that metadata was available in that backend table. So that to validate those informations, okay. So this metadata, whenever we start the job, so it will get the metadata from the backend table through the repository via job server, and this job server will send the signal to the engine. This engine will connect to the system. It will validate the credentials. If the credentials or the connectivity was success, then it will send back the signal to the job server. This job server will send the signal back to the repository. From there, that repository to like what designer visible screen or administrate like this management console, we can see the information. If the connectivity or if any failure signals was coming from this job, this engine, right, the job server itself throws an error which will be printed out in our error log. For example, like when the job server sends the signals to the engine, it will goes and check the credentials to the database. If the credentials are not working fine, then it will send back some default message like general error, could not able to connect to the particular system. It will give the server information, and it will give some general information about that particular error. So those type of error will be coming from job server, and they will print out in the output of error log in the management console. Or if you want to see it in the designer, the same thing, you can see it from the designer. Okay, and obviously the third point is nothing but so complex scenarios, whatever, like how much metadata it was having, those all the metadata will be stored in the job server. For example, there is one scenario where we can have like we have very huge amount of data that we are getting from the source, and we have more number of transformations that we have used in our project. Okay, so that time what will happen, even this job server, whichever database it has configured, right, so if the database don't have such memory to handle such type of request, obviously the job will get stuck for some time because it should process the data slowly. So that time also this job server will plays an important role. It will have some cutoff time. It will have some timeout type things. So if that cutover time was lost, then the job will automatically it will fail. That time also job server will plays an important role. So this is the advantage of job server. Any questions till now? So you're understanding, right? Or it was something faster or something slower? Shall I move a little faster or shall I move a little slower? Or is that okay?
Okay, Venkat.
Yeah, okay. Then I will move to the next slide then. Yep. Now coming to the data services designer. Designer, it we can say like it was the heart of BODS. So without this, BODS is nothing. Okay. It was an user interface, we can say. Designer is an user interface where we have very huge amount of options. It was easy to use, and the options also, if you consider, like there is no much options. For example, how a tools looks like easier to us if it should have lesser amount of options. So data service is a tool. It should have very less amount of options, and with minimal of options, it can do complex transformations, which will be used for our project or client requirement. You know, with this designer, each thing we call it as an object. Like in data services designer, workflows, data flows, job, and tables, transformations different. So workflows, data flows, job, workflow, data flow, tables. These all are objects, we can say. If someone asks you like, tell me like what all are the objects in a objects are available in a data services. So in that case, you can say like job is an object, workflow is an object, and data flow is an object, table is an object, data store is an object, okay, and flat file is an object. So all of these are considered as a object. In our data services language, we call it as an object. Okay, so it has some lesser amount of objects, and in that objects as well, it has lesser amount of options as well. So which can be easy to use for us. Okay, so by using those, we can do transformations, we can do whatever the logic that are required for our project. We can do mappings. Mapping is nothing but like from source to target, we need to map. For example, there is a source table in which some hundreds of columns out there. In that hundreds of columns, we don't need all of the columns should be mapped to target. We need few of the columns should be mapped to the target. Okay, in that case, whatever the columns that are required, we can map those to target. So that type of things we can do from the designer. The second points, if we go to the second point, applications here nothing but like we can connect to the different systems in SAP language. Each system we can call it as an application. Like SAP ECC, it was an application. We are connecting from the designer, and SAP HANA, we can connect it from the designer, and what we call like some other systems, whatever the like data storing systems are there, we can call it as a applications from the designer. From the designer, we can connect from the different applications. By using those application connectivity, we can build our workflows, data flows, flow, and transformations we can do. And the third point itself, it was saying like whenever, as I mentioned, like whenever you are starting developing of something inside a designer, until and unless you have not saved the whatever you done, it won't store backend system. Whatever changes or whatever new flows that you have implemented, you must save it. Otherwise, it won't store in the metadata table. Any questions till now? Shall we move to the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, engine. As I mentioned, right, whenever we, whenever we start to execute a job, so the designer itself will send an information, or if you want to execute a job from console, that console will send a signal to the repository, and it will go, that signal will goes through job server to the engine, and that engine will send back a signal through that engine only. This extraction part or loading part or transformations part will be starting. Okay, that is the major role of an engine in a data services. And there is, you know, a very huge amount of requests are coming from the designer or console. Huge amount of requests are nothing but like, you know, there are some 10 to 12 developers are working. So at a time, all of these developers has executed parallelly some few of the jobs from each of them repositories. For example, there are 10 developers are working, and in each developer personal repository, they have parallelly executed almost 10 jobs. So 10 into 10, 100 jobs are executed. So this 100 jobs, which contains huge amount of data from the source, that huge amount of data should be loaded into target, and it contains very like high level transformations, or what we call like huge amount of transformations we make use in that particular job. So even those type of request also this engine can handle. If it is a sequence type of request or parallel type of request, any type of request engine can handle. Out of 100 jobs, there are sometimes like 2 to 3 jobs might get failed because of some memory issues. If backend database has huge amount of memory, then this engine can handle all of the requests at a time as well. If the memory is insufficient in the backend system or backend database, then engine also won't do anything. That is what the engine will do here. That is the importance of engine in the data services. Any questions till now?
So Venkat, like for example, when you extract that data from one source to another source, so for example, you have a source and you have a target. In between, you have a couple of transformations. When we execute the package job or something, so where it will, temporarily store. Suppose, for example, in a source you have some millions of data, 10 millions of data is there. So it will affect the data from the source, and it will somewhere it will store into the any directory something or
No, in that case, job server will place. Job inside the job server, it will store that metadata information.
metadata. Okay.
Yeah, it's act as like some catchy memory in between, like from source to target data moment. It will act like some catchy memory.
So once the job is complete, it will release the cache, right?
Yes, correct. So if you are going to work on a real-time project, right? Admin will suggest you don't use single job server for many jobs.
Okay.
That will impact on the job server. Sometimes it will dead as well.
Mhm.
That time, whatever the jobs are running on that particular job server, the jobs will get stuck. It won't process any data. That time you should manually abort the jobs, or if it is not possible from the management console, you should contact your admin team so that he can in backend he can stop all of this, and freshly you can start execution of these jobs again. That's how it works. So whenever we configure our BODS, right, that time only based on our project, like project size is not nothing but like, I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about like how many
Data.
number of jobs or how much data that we are going to handle. Based on that, 3 to 4 job servers they have to like configure in the designer. Those all are comes under admin part only. So they will configure these job servers, and from these job servers they can have one job server group as well. Okay, so why they are creating job server group, we don't know, like for example, I am working on some particular project in my local repository. I don't know like which job server was most busiest job server, like what all are the jobs, what is the maximum number of jobs running in a particular job server. That time what happens, if I trigger some jobs on a particular job server which was having busy like a number of jobs running on that particular job server, my job will get delay, and it won't load the data very faster. It will impact on my what we call the performance of the job, in which user won't get satisfied. So that time what we will do, we will connect to the admin team, we will ask him to create a job server group. So while making use of that group, it contains all the job server available in the designer. So that job server group, what it will do, it will select the job server which is having less amount of requests on it. For example, there are four job servers are there, in which one job server 5, another job server 6, another job server 8, another job server 10. So these many jobs are running. Out of these four, first job server having less what we call the uh, lesser number of jobs running on this job server. Then at that particular time, if I select the job server group, it will pick the first job server to run my job on that particular job server.
Okay.
You got my point, right?
Yes, yes.
So how we configure job server groups and how we configure job server, I will explain you like how we can configure job server, not in practically but theoretically. I have some images. If you follow those steps, you can configure, but those all are comes under admin tasks.
Okay.
Those all are completely different.
Hmm.
So admin can help you out there. Okay,
Yes.
that's how it will work. And any doubts till now? Any other questions? Shall I move to next slide?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Access server. I mentioned you right. This access server, it will whenever we are working on some real-time jobs or real-time services, right? That time this access server will plays an important role. It will take the request or send the request or collect the request from the repository and transfer the signal between repository to application server. So this access server will plays an important role. Okay, and through this access server, any message comes inside to the access server, and it will go and check in the metadata table, and it will collect that information, and it will send back to that information to the repository. From that repository we can see the data in the designer or in the management console. Like that this access server will work in our case. Any questions here?
No.
Okay, so see, these access servers, engines, and job server. So these three things on the directories and dictionaries are there, right? So these four things, as a developer, we nowhere use all these things. If you have knowledge on that, then that's good. If not, also good, because as a developer, we need our designer and what are the options that are available inside a designer. If a job fails, what shall we need to do? So these all are the important things for us. Important it means like these all are the things which will be used for our project, because client won't ask for what is the access server will do, what is job server will do, what is what we call the backend metadata table, how can we change. So client won't need these informations. He needs like his data should be moved from one system to another system, whatever the transformations rule that he has needed. So then you might have questions like why we need to know about all these things, because as a developer you need to know all of these things. From that, what all are the important for your project, you need to concentrate on that. Remaining concepts, you need to have some theoretical knowledge inside your mind. That's it. Got my point, right?
Yes.
Okay. So shall we move to next slide?
Yes.
Yeah. Address server. So I haven't explained you this address servers, right? Whenever we discuss about what we called architecture of data services. So this address server is nothing but we have, there is one transformations available in BODS, address cleansing or address decode or something transformations are there. Some transformation is there. I could not remember the exact name now. That time it will check the, it will have all the information inside the metadata. So whenever we make use of the transformations, right, it will go to this address server, it will search for that one, and it will pick up the correct one, and it will send the data to the sorry, send a signal, and that signal contains the data. That data will be goes to the target table and load the data into table. So that is the main advantage of address server. Other than that, it doesn't have any backend process or nothing. It has like how the engine, how the job server, how the real-time servers are works. It doesn't have any such type of functionality inside it. It will just store some default values, and if something was changed, it will whenever we do tool upgrade, right, whenever we have upgrade, automatically it will update the that value. So that is the main use of address server.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions here? Shall we move to next slide?
Yes.
Yep. Now our final question is like what is data services. So till now I have explained you, right, like at least I gave some overview of data services, what all are the components it has, what all are the objects it has, how the architecture was, how the process it will done. So can someone explain me whatever you understood here, so that I can like I can have some ideology like how can I explain more. Because why I'm asking these questions, I don't want like it should be like one way traffic. It should be something like an interaction section in which like you have a number of questions. I can ask you questions, you can ask me questions. So it's something like a more interesting session. It should not be a bored session or something. So can someone explain me like whatever the points that you have got it from past 1 hour? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Can someone start?
Can you repeat,
Yep.
please, what you just said?
No, I'm asking like till now what is data services, you might get some idea, right? Okay, this is what the data service tool was. This is what the data services tool will do. This is how we will work. This is what the high level visible of a data services. Can somebody explain what all are the points that you have understand till now? If somebody asks you what is a data services, what will be your answer on that top of that?
Yeah, Venkat, Shravan here. So far, what I understood is uh, we are moving the data from one source to the other source. So in this process, we have as uh, as I understood in architectural diagram, we have a a job server and access server and the repositories, and then repositories which is connecting to a designer and a management console. So
Mhm.
initially, we extract the data from the source using the job server, and then it is getting reflecting into the metadata into our repositories, and then on top of this, we will be based on the requirement, we'll be designing this in our designer services. And once the data flows or job flows is completed, we will be creating a jobs to on daily basis to get this data into our systems to the target system. And to monitor this, we will be using our management console. And
Okay.
so this is this is an overview of what I understood.
Okay. So anyone who wants to go next? Any other inputs or any other understanding?
Yes, Venkat. Like when we execute like any when you run or execute any job, first it will go to the repository. So based on the metadata, it will go to the like a job server. From the job server, it will goes to the Axis server. Oh, sorry. Then from job server, it will goes to the engines actually. So once the from the engines, it will come back to the job server and the repository. In this way, it will execute the jobs actually.
Okay.
So Venkat, I have one question related to repositories again. So for example, suppose here we have four developers and one admin. So four developers have four local repositories. Okay,
Mhm.
Ad- admin have like access for the four repositories and the central repository. So in QA and production also, do we need the similar structure in the QA and production or not required?
No, only one environment is enough. In
The
development,
in QA and production, no need these local repositories.
no, local repository everywhere it's needed. What I'm saying is like you have four developers, right?
Yes.
Out of four, each one have their own repositories. They can develop their jobs. Okay.
Yes, correct. Yes.
So whenever they want to move this, whatever they developed, right? So they can move it from central repository or ATL file as well. They can move that to test local repository. UAT, you must have one more local repository. Production, you must have one more repository. Like environment wise, it will change. For each environment, you must have one local repository.
Okay.
So,
But
yeah,
isn't it the developer should only have their own local repo in the development?
yeah, like at a time, we can have only one repository as well. At a time, two developers can use the same repository. Many developers also can use because it's not like something, there are some advantages are there, there are some disadvantages also there. For example, I will explain you one scenario. Let's consider in our project in development environment we have only one local repository in which four developers are working. Okay.
No, no, no. I'm referring to in development server, each developer should have their own local repo. So if you have four, then it you'll see four local repo as an admin in the development. But what
In
I'm saying is a developer should not have a local repo in production and in QA. What we should
no,
see, QA and production are the central repo.
no. Like in development, each developer can have their own local repository, but
Right.
when it comes to QA or production, you should mention only one repository.
One
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
one local and one main repository, right?
No, no,
No,
no,
no.
no. No, no, no.
Only
One
there is the
main.
only one repository.
That
Only
There
is
is
a
one
no
central
repository.
local.
repo,
There
Only
is
have
central
that
one.
is
repository, right?
only no. Central is different. Don't compare local repository with central. Central
Okay,
is
okay,
completely different. That local repository is the main repository in QA and production.
okay. Got it.
Okay,
So,
only one local repository in QA and production. Okay.
Yes.
so
Like
for example, four developers developed four different jobs. Okay, so each developer developed one job. So these four jobs, I mean, sit under one local repository in QA, right?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so now if I need
The
to make any,
developer, the developer should not have their own local repo in QA. Otherwise,
Correct.
that's not QA anymore, right?
No, even that's up to us. So let me clarify all of your questions. I got your point. For example, there are four developers, and in development environment, you have clarity like each developer should have their own local repository. But coming to central repository, it will be same for all the developer. If you have 100 developers, that central repository is same for 100 developers. You no need to create different central repositories for 100 developers. Clear till now?
Yes.
Okay. So that is what the development environment. When you comes to QA or test environment, so there you can have one local repository and one main repository. Here local and main repository are not different. Both are same. We should have only one local repository. If user still wants to have one more repository also, you can create that one. There is no any restriction in that. Even SAP also don't told us like in QA you should have only one repository. That's based on our project and based on our convenient. We can create. So if you want to maintain four repositories in development, you can also maintain the same four repositories in your test environment as well. Even the same thing applicable to production as well. But based on project requirements, it's all depends on project only. How you want to design your admin, like how do you want to design your landscape. And also, if you have four repositories in each environment, right, it will affect on your cost as well.
Right.
Yeah. So in that way, also you need to think.
Because that's license.
Yes, correct.
so if we have one local repository and one central repository in quality and production, so who is going to have that access for the local repository? Everyone can access.
Yeah, everyone can access. If you have one local repository in your development environment, so you can at a time n number of users can log in into that local repository and they can do their work, but they should save
Why
their work
why
once
would you do the work in QA and in production? So if you
no, no,
execute
no.
your if
No,
you
I'm not saying.
execute
I'm talking about development environment only.
Oh, okay, okay. Because if you have a developer have a local repo in production, if you execute that program, it will update the production data.
Yes, production it should have only one local repository. So that way SAP has recommended in production. But project requirement, if you want, you can create as well. That depends on project requirement and cost effect as well. There is no any restrictions like we should have only one repository in the production or we should have only 100 repositories in the production. It depends on project requirement.
So Venkat, in QA, on our production, so local and main is same, right?
Yes, yes. QA and production, local is
And
and main.
local and main is same, but each environment QA have their own central and production have their own central. Three
No, no, no. See, here central repository, how do we define, like, see, in development, local repository is there and test local repository is there, right?
Yes.
So if we want to transport something from dev local to test local, right?
You
Yes.
use
There is dev central will be there. So they will call it as a dev central.
Dev central. Okay.
Okay, so from dev local to dev central and then test local.
Okay, got it.
So this is how from dev to test transport was done. Like dev local repository to test local repository, transport is done. Now what you will do from test environment to production environment, again you will do a transport, right? There also we need a central repository. That central repository we call it as a test central repository.
Okay.
Okay, so for example, you are working on a single project. In that project, you must minimum requirement was you should have one local repository in development and one dev central repository and one test local repository and one test central repository and one production local repository. These all are the minimum requirement. So
Yes.
based on your project, based on your requirement, you can have n number of repositories. But central repository is only one for n number of users, n number of developers. It won't change.
Each environment have one central.
Central, yes. Like no, only like we have three environment, right? Dev,
Yes.
test, and production. So
Yes.
these three environment we should have only two central repositories. One is for dev central, one is for test central. For production, we don't have any other central repositories.
Oh,
We should make use of this test central repositories.
okay.
Okay, you got my point, right? It should be
Yes.
like some triangle shape
Yes.
from dev local to dev central, from dev central to test local, from test local to test central, and then test central to production local.
Production. Yeah. Got it.
You got my point, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So any other explanations if somebody asks you what is data services? Because see, I got only answers from two people. So those two answers are not satisfied with me. So you both of them, you are explaining the architecture of data services. You're not telling like what is the use of data services, why we choose for data services. So any other answers if somebody will ask you what is data services? Come on, speak out, no worries. Nothing will happen. No one will file a case against you if you tell something wrong.
Yeah, we could. Data service is something like modifying the raw data into an uh, understandable, like raw data is cleansed and cleaned and shared to a source to the target, which that is what I think, like cleaning up the raw data and cleansing of data, or else doing some basic logics required. Those are implemented
Mm-hmm.
and giving the right information, like without any.
Yeah. Basically, like for
And
example, yeah,
it's
it's each.
analyzable by it's in a way to analyze the data we are providing, that clean and cleansed data.
Okay.
Basically,
Any
the
other?
ETL tool, right? So we can extract the data from the source and we can modify the as per our requirement using transformations. We can modify the data as per the target requirement. So then we can load into the targets.
Yes, this is what I am expected from you. This was the first point you need to tell. Like, what is data services means? It was a ETL tool. Finish. That is the first point you need to tell. Now, if you want to explain more about data services, you can explain anything. But first point should be if somebody asks you, okay, before I move it to this one, still I'm expecting some answer from you. Can somebody explain in more elaborative way? Because see, this session I don't want to like, okay, I will explain something, mere kaam ho gaya. That way I don't want to explain something. If I don't know something, I can learn, I can go where to learn, and I can explain, I can present in front of you. But what I want is, my intention was you should understand the concept. And if you go tomorrow, like after this training, if you go to attend some interviews, or if you go want to do some work, you should not look back again to these videos as well. You should do your own way. So that is what my intention was. So only I'm just asking you, I'm just giving you time to explore yourself more. Now tell me any other answers. I'm expecting some answers from you.
So this is something like application which we extract the data from a number of sources and implement the logic or transformations, and then provide the required data into the target system by creating a daily jobs or a month jobs.
Okay. Okay. Any other answers? Okay. Then let me tell you these things. So if somebody comes to me and if he wants to, and if he asks me like, what is the data services? Why you are choosing data services? So my answer would be like, see, data services is nothing but an ETL tool. So it will do data extraction, and it has very huge amount of very vast options, very huge amount of options to do the transformations, and which will meet the user requirement, and it will load the data into all the systems, whichever wherever we want to load the data. And the second point was, somebody will ask you, yeah, in market we have n number of ETL tools, why should you go for data services? It has more cost as well. If you compare with some other tool, data services most cost tool. So why should you choose only data services? That case, what will be your answer? Yeah, it might be cost, but as a data privacy, these type of options no any other tool will provide. It has more secure. If I do want to work on some of the development tasks, second person or any other person cannot make any changes until and unless I provide access to him, and he won't change anything. And data services is a tool, it should have individual workspace for individual developers. That type of functionality no any other tool was providing in market. And it has version management as well, like initial version to till updated version, whatever required for our project, it will maintain that version management in the central repository. Through that central repository, from scratch development to till latest development, whatever we want we can get from the central repository. And for monitoring the job, And for developing the job, we have different tools or different UI environment. UI we can say user interface. For developing, we have designer. For monitoring, we have administrator. And in management console also we have auto documentation. In no tool you have auto documentation. Show me one ETL tool like which have provide auto documentation. Yeah, even it will require a manual effort, but our most of the manual effort it will reduce. And it have some operational dashboard, like we can see the job status, how many jobs are running, or how many jobs are failed, how many jobs are having warning. So all these status we can have some beautiful visual dashboard as well. And also yeah, it will store the metadata as well in backend. Even if we don't have tool access as well, if we have the table access, if I was an admin or if I have some admin roles in my development profile, so I can make changes in backend as well if I have that much of knowledge. And it will be the most important thing. If some user comes, if he wants, why he should choose data services, it was more secure than any other ETL tool. So these all are the points you need to explain to a particular person. So no one will ask you like because of this architecture I choose data services, because user don't know what is architecture of BODS. Some might know, some might not know known about architecture of BODS. And somebody knows how the access server will work and how the engine will work, how the backend process will happen, what metadata will do, how it will access the metadata. So these information user won't need as well. As a developer, we need to know. As a admin, whoever doing admin task, he must know all this process. If you explain this way, like how like application server, job server, this that, so no one will choose data services. We need to explain like highlight points of data services. We need to tell our answers compared with all other ETL tools. Why should we go for data services? So this way we need to answer. You got my point, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. See, you
I
can
think
see all this.
most advantages is like it tied in, integrated with SAP as applications, right? So
Yes,
other
correct.
ETL, other databases, but I think data services is a access like ERP application something.
Yes, you have all these points in front of you. See, technology with capability to explore, transform, and move data anywhere to any frequency. Frequency is nothing but here data, amount of data that we want to transfer from source to target. And improve data, that means parse the data, cleans the data, enhance the data, matching the data, consolidate the data. So these type of capability, even other tool also have, but BODS also have this capability. Deliver auditable information. Auditable is nothing but you can do debugging as well in designer. Like you have developed something and you just want to see like where the exact issue was. You can do debugging as well. So that option is also there. I forgot to tell you that previously. And maximize the developer productivity. That means, see, here developer productivity is nothing but if a single user was logged in into single repository, at a time, 3 or 4 users can log in into single repository. Other than that, we cannot log in. So in BODS, we can have separate local repositories for each developer. In that, productivity will be increased. Forget if you go for productivity, we should forget about cost also. So that case, it was very best tool in the market. And if you consider to the fifth point, deliver extreme scalability on single servers or multiple servers. Here, multiple single server means like you can make use of single server to run multiple jobs, or multiple jobs can run on multiple job servers. You can choose for job server group. Here, grid computing is nothing but job server group. Indirectly, they are saying like grid computing. Okay. Then benefits, database or application agnostic, means you can connect to any of the database system or any of the applications. Here applications is nothing but SAP ERP systems you can connect. And total graphical environment maximizes developer productivity with little or no coding, because this, while making use of these graphical transformations or this what we called objects or components, it won't need much coding as well. And even if you go for a coding, whatever the scripting language that data services has supports, right, that scripting language also you can write with some basic syntax with your basic English knowledge as well. So, for example, if you want to write a scripting, right, there is no need of some third-party languages as well, like Python or JavaScript or some other Java coding. These type of coding also not required for data services. You can, if you have basic knowledge, if you have basic syntax knowledge, and if you have English knowledge, if you are very good at your English proficiency, then you can write any type of script in data services. It was like user friendly. If you want to talk with the people how you are talking, in that way you can talk with the data services with some basic syntax is needed. That's how it will work. And
Okay.
the
Uh,
final, sorry.
sorry to interrupt you. So, is there a point to improve the performance of these loads? I don't see here technology with the capabilities too. So I don't see such point here.
Performance of the load you're asking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a couple of options are there at each level of the job. But here it was not showing. It was technical things, right? So
Mhm.
only we haven't placed those points here. When we go deeply into that tool, I can explain you what all are the performance tuning options also there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is how you need to explain the points if somebody will ask you data services. So from your answer, he should not ask you another question. You got my point, right? Till now, any questions?
No.
Okay. Shall I move to the next slide?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So this is how the designer, what we call the interface will looks like. So this area we will call it as a project area. Okay. So I will explain you. I will show you the tool, but now I'm just showing you the pictorial representation here in the PPTs. So this was called as a project area. Even we can see that in the tool, when we log in into the tool, this is how the UI will be looks like. This will call it as a project area. This will call it as a object library. So before we can go to the object library, see in project area, we will have designer here. So designer is nothing but it will give the jobs information. We can expand like if we come from the high level job, inside the job we have workflows. Here they won't use a workflow, but inside a job we can use workflows or directly we can use a work data flow. So here they make use of data flow. So before it we can make use of workflow as well. So inside this data flow, we can import the tables. Like we can take the tables. Like here we are taking some files, right? So that list we can see here. Even if we double click here, that part will come to show here like this. So here it will call it as a source. So from like whenever you want to take any table, you need to go to the data store. Later I will explain you about this. So you need to drag the table. So whenever you release your mouse here, it will ask for like you need it as a source or target. So based on whatever the requirement for you, you can go for it. So from here we are choosing it as a source. So from source we can directly map it to the whatever transformations that required for this development. We can make use of those transformations. And another table we can drag it here and we make it as a target. So this is how the project like designer area will looks like. And this was the project area. In that project area, designer, we will have the job information. And here, if you see, monitor will be there here. This monitor, if we run any of the job from the designer, right? So those job information, if we click on this monitor tab, you can see here. So whenever if you want to trigger any of the jobs from the management console, those jobs we cannot see in the designer. If we trigger any of the jobs from designer, those jobs we can see it from the management console. You got my point, right? There is no any confusion here, right?
Yes, Shankar.
uh,
Now, yeah.
okay, let me explain one more time. For example, you developed some job. If you want to execute that job from designer, you can see the job status in the monitor tab here and also management console. But if you trigger any of the jobs from management console, you cannot see the job status in the monitor tab in the designer.
Designer. Okay.
Okay, so don't get confused here. If you want also, I can explain you one more time. So you got clarity right here.
Yes, yes.
Okay, here log. Log is nothing but in this log we have three type of log. One is trace log, another one is monitor log, another one is error log. So from this log we can see here if we trigger the job from designer. Same also applicable like if we trigger the job from management console, we cannot see the logs in the designer. Okay, so
Okay.
this is the project area. And coming to local object library, in that local object library we have a number of subfolders here. Here project. So here whenever we want to implement some job, right, we need to create some jobs, right? Then we need to create one folder. For example, see, whenever we want to save a file, right, in our file dictionary or file manager, sorry, if I'm not file dictionary, file manager, if you want to save some text file, we need to create one folder, right? Similar way, if you want to if you want to create some jobs, we need to create a folder, and this folder was optional for us. This folder here we will call it as a project. Okay, inside that project we can move our jobs to that project folder, whichever. If something, for example, like there are 5 folders are there in that particular repository. In that 5 folders, if you want to develop some jobs, that particular job, whichever folder you want to save, that folder you can save that particular job. But one job can be stored into any number of folders as well. Okay, like that it was. And this is what the project folder. This will be I will explain you in later sessions. Coming to jobs, here in the jobs tab, we can have real time, we can have to create real time jobs or batch jobs. That is the use of jobs workflows. Once we create a job, then we will go to the workflow to create a workflow inside that particular job. Data flow. Data flow is nothing but okay, the uses of workflow was, we can define local variables inside this workflow. That is the main advantage. And also sometimes, we need some parallel processing of the data as well. That can be done via workflow as well and data flow as well, parallel processing. Because see, in a single workflow we can have n number of data flows. In a single job we can have n number of workflows. In a single project folder we can have n number of jobs. That is the hierarchy. First, project folder. In that project, single project folder, we can have n number of jobs, and in that single job we can have n number of workflows, and in that single workflow we have n number of data flows, and in that data flows, this was like actual development was started. Inside this data flow we have source, target, transformations, everything can be defined. And I told you no, like scripting language. That scripting can be done inside a workflow. We cannot do a scripting inside a workflow. Sorry, data flow. You're not confusing, right? You can ask me any question anytime. You can stop me any point of time if you're still getting in confused. Clear, right? Till now, till workflows at least. Can
Yes.
someone?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Okay. Now, inside a workflow, we can have a number of data flows. In each data flows, we can make use of transformations or our source table or source file, and we can make use of data stores to import to connect to a particular system, and from that system we can import the tables. After importing the tables, we can make use of the table as a source or the table as a target, but same table we cannot make as source and target. Okay. This point to be remembered. And also, coming to file formats here, file formats is nothing but if you want to access some excel files or some csv or delimited files, from this file format option we can access those. And functions, custom functions means if you want to reuse some functionality to the many jobs or few of the jobs, then we can have some custom functions. We can make use of functions as well. How our like in database or in our some other programming languages, how we implement functions, right? In the similar way, we can have our custom functions inside the data services or designer. So that can be done by using these custom functions. Okay, so these all are the like areas, and this was the workplace. We can call it as a workplace. In that workplace, these all are the shortcut tools. These tools will come some default values. It will change like based on how you are making use of the objects. The most used objects will be listed here. And these options, whenever we log in into designer, right, that time I will explain you these all these options. What is this option, what is this option, what is this option, what is 100% option, what is project, what is edit, what is view, what is tools, debug, validation, dictionary, window, help, and all these options I can explain once we go deeply into the designer tool. Okay, till now any questions?
No question, sir.
Okay, shall we move to next slide?
Yes, ma'am. Before that, can we have a 5-10 minutes break and then we can continue?
Yeah, sure, sure, no worries. So this is how the designer UI will be looks like. So any questions till now? No, right? I can
No.
move to next slide, right?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, designer interfaces, key areas of designer, as I explained you, right? Project area, tool palette, and workspace. Tool palette is nothing but I told you, na. This was tool palette. Okay. Toolbar. Toolbar is nothing but these are our toolbar. From here to till down. These are our toolbar. In project area, local object
Venkat Shravan
library.
here. Venkat
Yeah,
Shravan here.
yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
I can't see your mouse cursor moving. I just see that
Now,
two screens. No, the mouse cursor is still under key areas of designer. Now I can see
I
it.
I can see it, Shravan.
okay.
Okay, can you please repeat this tool palette?
Okay. Yeah, sure. This was the palette. Okay. And toolbar. These are the toolbar. The project, this data flow image was there, right? These all are toolbar. This was the project area I told you, and this was the local object library. Like in that local object library, we have project, jobs, workflows, data flows, transformations, data stores, file formats, and custom functions. And this was the work area, workspace, not work area, workspace or work area, whatever we call it as. Okay. So yeah. So this data store was there, right? I told you. So from this data store, some pre-built connectivities are there. Okay. So this pre-built connectivity, some system configurations are already defined. System configurations are like, for example, if we want to connect some MS SQL server, what all are the required parameters that are needed to connect to a SQL server? We must have what we call the server, then database name, then username, then password. So these are the four key values are needed, right? So those type of metadata things we can have pre-built here in the data store. So not only for MS SQL Server, some other databases, some other SAP applications, we have all these predefined parameterized connectivities to the system from the designer. So that if we consider as a databases, Oracle, DB2, Sybase, and IQ database, SQL Server nothing but MS SQL Server, Informix, Teradata, and ODBC connectivity, MySQL, Netezza. These all are the databases. Other than ODBC, these all are other databases. We can have some pre-built parameterized values to connect to a databases. Here we need to just, for example, if we want to extract or we want to load the data into Oracle tables, right? Then we need to have this Oracle server name and username and password. If it is required some port, even we can give the port information in the server itself. And we can connect to the applications. Applications are nothing but JD Edwards, Oracle apps, PeopleSoft, Sable, SFTC, SAP BI, SAP ERP systems like ABAP, BAPI, iDocs. Even these connectivities we can do it from the data stores. Files is, I told you, right? Some delimited files, Excel files, fixed width files, XML, COBOL, HTTP files, and these days APIs also we can connect from the data stores by using like some WSDL file or WDL file. We can configure that file into data store and we can directly make a call to the API servers as well. And mainframes are nothing but like these are a few of the functionalities. Even those also we can connect. And you know so whenever we create some connectivity to the any of the databases or any of the applications, right? If we want that particular connectivity to some other repository as well, we can export that particular connection as a ATL file and we can give it to some other person, some other developer into their local repository, or we can do it through central repository as well, or we can do it through the repository as well. Repository transport also we can do. Okay, so in every object we can do export, we can do transport through central repository, we can do it through repository to repository as well. So that's how it will work. You got my point, right? Any connections here? Any questions?
No, good.
Okay, shall I move to the next slide then?
Yes.
These all are the advantages. As I mentioned right previously. So these all are the few advantages that data services has. It has like better profiling as compared to the other tools. it have the learning curve of ETL tools quickly, because see, ETL tool, it has less amount of transformations with huge amount of less amount of options with huge amount of functionality. So only we can learn this tool very quickly, and it was easy to use as well. And also it was an UI interface, like we have for development we have separate UI interface, and for monitoring and see the job status we have different UI interface. And also this tool provides some inbuilt functions, like database functions. If we are on database level, right, whatever the functions, similar type of functions we can have in our ETL data services tool. And as usual, last point is nothing but like we can have some complex transformations can be implemented by using data services. So these all are the like high level advantages. If you go in depth, if some particular technical persons, if they ask to you what are the advantages, you can have a number of answers for them. You can explain all of them to them. If we go to the next sessions, we can understood that as well. Okay, these all are the advantage of data services. Any questions here regarding all these 5 points?
No.
Okay, then that's all about this presentation. So you understood this presentation, right?
Yes, sir, theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
So Venkat, in somewhere you mentioned like real-time job and batch jobs. So what is the difference, real-time job and batch job?
Okay, batch job, it's nothing but some system connectivity, like some database or some ERP systems. These type of data, if we want to extract and load it into some other systems, then that time we will go for batch jobs. Most of the times we will be using batch jobs only. Real-time jobs, nowhere we will use. Real-time jobs is nothing but like some online portal, you know some online portal backend. They don't want to maintain any of the databases. So that type of particular systems, if we want to have the data should be extracted for all the times, then only we will go for this real-time jobs. But that scenario was not needed. 99% we won't implement any real-time jobs in our project. 1% chance is there. But theoretically, I can explain you, because till now I haven't done any of the real-time jobs in my career. Most of the times we will go for batch jobs only.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, because for real time, you're not gonna use an ETL tool to do that. You're gonna use
Yes.
some web service.
Yes, correct. They have provided one option. If we want to use, then we can use. If not, then that's okay for us.
Yeah.
But option is there for us in data services.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Sudhakar, you may have some, questions from the stuff that you try, right? Like you can ask some best practices that can use. We still have an hour, right?
No, we have some other sessions as well. Like
Oh,
I have some. I
you
have
have more?
some assignments like assessment as well. So we will go through those. I can
Okay.
explain. I can give explanation. But still, if you have questions, you can ask me. It's maybe like not only from this presentation. You can ask any type of questions related to
Yeah, that's
BODS.
where
I can answer.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I asked Sudhakar. But I'll give a chance to Bob. Bob, do you have any question?
Not really. I mean, we're going to get more into what my questions would probably be on connectivity between different devices and different things.
Okay.
And understanding how to set up a development environment where we would be able to share that information back and forth. I think there's some concern there in that we
See,
can't see what the other developers are doing. So unless we have a share session or whatever, we can't understand what.
see,
And that
configuring.
part of that is knowing where to go get that information.
Okay. See, Bob, like configuration tool is different. So developer, if he has knowledge, then that's okay. But if he doesn't have knowledge, then also it's okay. So as a developer, you should know like what are the tool options that you need to work on your project. Okay, it's not mandatory that like you should know how do we configure the BODS, how do we access the, how do we do the backend system configurations. These all are not required to the developer.
I
That's
agree.
what I can
I
say.
agree.
Yeah,
From the
yeah,
developer standpoint, we just need to understand where the code is, where the source is, where the target is.
yeah.
So,
How do we connect to the
but if
different systems? Yeah, how do we
right,
connect to the different system from the designer? That we will discuss in our upcoming sessions. That is not an admin task. That
that's
is a
fine.
developer task. If we have some MS SQL server, so how do we connect? How do we make that particular database as our source or target system? And if we have some other database, how do we connect? What all are the prerequisites to connect to that system from designer? So these all are things we can discuss in our upcoming sessions. Any other questions from anyone? Maria, do you have any questions?
Um, I'm I do not have.
Okay,
So,
Sudhakar, you have any questions?
yes, Venkat. In BODS, do we have like this? Like for example, we can create any one template job or something. So can we reuse in, like, for example, your multiple dimension in our target system. So we create one job for one dimensions. So can we reuse that existing
Yes,
jobs and we
yes,
can mod?
yes. Yes, that can be possible, but you need to replicate each and every object in that case. For example, you know, you are connecting from one system to another system and you make use of some transformation. Logic was same for all the tables, but you need to create different jobs. So in
Yeah,
that case,
I agree that one. So, for example, in like suppose the global variables or parameters, everything is same. So just we need to change some small modifications. So we can use the
yes,
existing and
yes,
we can rename that one, right? So
yes, correct. But before doing anything, you need to replicate each and every object from lower level to high level, or from high level to low level. That thing I can explain in our upcoming sessions. But theoretically, it can be possible. Practically, also, it will possible.
okay.
Yeah.
So for example, suppose me and Shravan working on the same server, like source is same and target is same for both developers. Okay, suppose he exporting
Source,
data from.
see, source and target. Okay, for your current job, source and target systems are same.
Yeah, for example, he extracting data from the customer data. He extracting from source to target dimensions. I'm extracting data for material. Okay, I
Hmm?
suppose, for example, while creating the data store connection, I give some XYZ name. He gives some ABC. Okay, so two are the different names. So the source is same and target is same, but we created two different data store connection names. So
Hmm.
is it correct when we export to the QA or production, you have any issues or is there any maintenance problem, something? Or
Yeah,
like,
that.
or we can create the connections in a main repository and we can import from the main to local.
No, see, in that case, like the system was same, but you named it as a different data store names, right?
Yeah, I don't know in my local repository
Okay.
I created with
Okay.
yeah.
Both of you are connected to the same system, but the name whichever you given, you have that idea, but you don't know idea about what Shravan has created in his local
Yes, yes,
repository.
yes,
Okay, in
yes.
that case, there are two options here. Whenever Shravan has given you the job to import into your local repository, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, you can change the connection of that particular table. That I will explain you. Don't worry. That even that can be possible.
Okay. Like
Even Shravan's connections also you can import into your local repository. That
I'm
option
I'm
will be there.
I'm not worried about my local. So basically, when we move to both into the QA or production, so in production and QA, two different connections, right? So
Yeah,
that is little confusing for the maintenance, right?
yeah.
So
Like in data store also, we can have all the three environment configurations as well. So whichever we want, we can manually change that one. For example, in development area, you can have three configurations. This development area in a single data store, you have the connectivity to dev, test, and prod. Okay, if you are in development environment, you can point this connection to development environment. If you are in UAT or test environment, you can point that particular connection to test environment. If you are in a production environment, you can point that into production environment. But before you running the job, you should know like which environment it was pointing. That you need to do a basic check there.
so that is manual process. For example,
Manual process.
I created one job. Okay, the source is some XYZ, the source. Okay,
Hmm.
so but in quality there is a source server is different. So once export to QA, the admin should open that connection and change the manually the
Okay,
connections.
so whenever you do export from dev to test environment, right? If you
Yes,
have different two type of servers from dev to test, right? You
yes.
you can explore that particular connection or that particular configuration while you are doing the transport. You understand my point? Shall I answer you again?
No, Venkat, can you
But
explain?
Okay.
can you just parameterize that connection? I mean, why would you hard code that on the
Yeah, no need to parameterize as well. In a single data store also, we can have n number of configurations.
No, Venkat. For example, in a development, we have only one configuration that is specific to dev. Okay, so the server name is some the ABC. Okay, the server name is ABC. Okay, in QA the source is XYZ. Okay, when
Mhm.
how can we change to the ABC to XYZ in QA once move the jobs to QA? So that is manual
Okay, see,
process or
yeah,
automation.
that is a manual process we need to do. There is no any parameterized configurations we can do. See, whenever you want to move the code from dev to test, right? In your
Yes,
case, your server was different in dev and test.
yes.
So in that case, what you will do, you should mention the data store name should be same in both the environments. So whenever
Name
we
is
create,
yeah,
see,
name is
whenever we,
okay, but the
yeah, see, I'm
actual
not
server
done
name
with
is
that.
different, right?
Okay, okay. Let me explain your point so that
Okay.
you can get full clarity on that. So whenever you do transport, you should create the same data store with different servers, right? But the
Yes.
data store name should be same in the designer.
Okay.
So whenever you are doing transport from dev to test, right?
Hmm.
You whenever you click on export option, right?
Hmm.
It will show what all are the things that you want to export. At that time, you no need to exclude all the data store and tables. You just exclude the data store configuration, and while you import that ATL file, right?
Hmm.
Anyhow, this data store name was same, right? Automatically, it will point to that particular data store, and it will pointing to the test environment server. I know it was still not clarify your question.
Okay, maybe once we do the real time, like on
Yeah,
the
real time.
design.
If I explain you, then only you will get 100% clarity.
But
But this can be possible.
basically no need to manual change. For example, you have 100 jobs.
No need to do manual changes. You just need to create the data store name as same, but you can give a number of servers there.
Okay. So,
In a single data store, you can have multiple number of configurations. That is the first thing. Second thing, if you want, like what we call data store name should be same in each environment. To avoid this confusion, data store name should be maintained in the same naming conventions, but server name, username, password, whatever required to connect to that particular system, it can be different.
okay.
While doing the transport, you can just exclude that particular data store configuration from dev to test, and while importing that into test environment, automatically it will be pointing to that particular data store. No need to manually change the data store or manually deleting the tables and again importing the tables. That manual work is not needed if you maintaining the same data store name in the each environment.
Each environment. Okay. So,
Yeah, that's how it was.
okay.
Okay, any other questions? Shravan, you have any questions to me? Okay. Can anyone have any questions? Shall we, or else shall we move to this assessment? So, can someone read out the first question and can somebody answer to that? Which of the following option is contained in BO data services? BO data services is nothing but BODS. BO means business objects, our tool itself. Can someone tell me what all are the options are there in BODS?
I think all the above.
Why all the above? Tell me the reason as well.
Yeah, we can connect to source. As you mentioned, there are four major sources we have
Mhm.
mentioned. And the target, we can, and the same source and the, I mean, in that we have a couple of options like BI and HANA or any source, and the target can be any of those. So we
Mhm.
have that option available here. So for that,
Mhm.
second point
And
is that
we have a metadata repository which controls all our coding and stuff.
so
Okay.
once about two steps are satisfied, then when we consider the third point, management console for scheduling jobs. So we have a management console where we can schedule our jobs or monitor the jobs, and we can see the scheduling from a designer as well. So these 3 points will be satisfying to say that these are contained in Vivo Data Service.
Okay. That's correct only. So do we need any clarifications on first question? Shall we move to second question? Can somebody tell me the answer of second question?
All of the above.
Why?
Because the repository will maintain the versioning and the security part we can maintain the repository. So the management console we can monitor the jobs and scheduling. So that part we can maintain that in the management console. And designer the actual development the jobs in the designer. The job
Mhm.
server it will executing the jobs actually. So
Mhm.
So in this
And
architecture,
all required.
right.
Yes, correct. Because see, in this architecture of BODS, if any of this, what we call any of these options we miss, then our BODS tool won't work properly. Some features we might lose. So only all of these options should be needed in the BODS architecture. So now third question will be, what will be the answer? So second question was clear for all, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I would go with
So,
A on this one, business objects data services.
yes, that is the full form of BODS, Business Objects Data Services. Okay. So clear, right? Third question.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Can someone tell me the answer for fourth question?
C.
Mm-hmm. Why C?
Repository. Basically, it will do the user management and repository registrations. I think it's not related with the job services, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's correct. Any clarifications needed for fourth question?
No.
Okay. Coming to fifth question. What is the answer for fifth question?
Let's restore the
It's all the above, isn't it? Because we would steal any real time or batch jobs in any new projects.
Yes, answer was right. But can someone explain me like what is real time, what is batch jobs one, what is new projects, where we can see all these options?
So these options can be viewed on the left pane of the designer, where we create a project.
Yes, central object library. There we can see new projects. New projects is nothing but folder creation. Whenever we create folder, right, in our general language we can say it as a folder, but in BODS level, like BODS naming, we can say it as a project. For each folder we can call it as a project. Batch job. So whenever we want to create jobs, we can go for batch job or real-time jobs. So this designer, integrator designer allows to store the dash in the repository, means all of the above. It will contain real-time jobs, batch jobs, and new projects. New projects is nothing but folder. Okay,
Okay.
clear, right? Shall we move to the next question? Can someone tell me the answer for next question?
Answer is D, all of the above.
Yeah. So we discussed, right? Impact
Yeah.
and linear analysis, administration, auto documentation, operational dashboard, data validation. So all of these options are available in management console. Okay. Any clarifications needed for sixth question?
No.
Okay. Now seventh question. Which of the following options links the interface between the actual backend database and data services?
Data store.
Any other answers?
Only data store only.
Yes, correct. Because from the data store only we can connect to the any of the databases from the data services. Clear, right?
Yes.
Okay. So eighth question, I haven't spoke about all these three. We only talk about local repository and central repository. Even profiler repository also available in BODS. This was not mainly used, or in our real-time project, we nowhere will use this profiler repository. It's just, it will store the statistical information inside it. Statistical information like, you know, it will visualize the job status in data, what we call the in management console. One option is there, right? This operational dashboard. So to visualize that operational dashboard, this profiler repository plays an important role. For that purpose only, this profiler repository will be there for us. Okay, so in this data services, we have these three type of repositories. One is local repository, each one for each developer, or we can have only one for all the developers. Central repository to store the versions of the each of the object, or we will do the transport through the central repository. Profiler repository to store the statistical information inside it. So that for the 8th question, the answer would be D, all of the above. Okay, clear, right?
Yes.
Please repeat this profile repository.
Okay, yeah. Profiler repository is nothing but it will store the statistical information. Statistical information is nothing but, see, whenever there are in production environment, there are couple of jobs are running for us, right? So those information where we are getting into our operational dashboard. So that information, it will store in the profiler repository. So from that repository, we will get all the statistical information, not only in the operational dashboard, even when we monitor the jobs from the management console, right? So what is the job status, whether it was failed, whether it was running, whether it was in completed state, whether whatever the status of the jobs, or how much time it will the job will run, what is the duration of the job. So every information we can see in the profiler repository. So backend, this profiler repository will do all the process. We cannot see this profiler repository in our real-time designer. We can see local repository and SAP central repository, but profiler repository we can't see.
Where this is available? This is something like central management console.
Yes. Clear, right?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. What about 9th question? What is the answer for it?
C. Both
Yeah.
A and
Okay. So in BODS, we can create real-time jobs and batch jobs. Clear, right? 9th question was.
yes.
Can we move to 10th one? Can somebody answer this one? Sorry, anyone have any questions? Okay, let's move to 10th question. Can someone answer me?
I would say it's option C, which is both A and B, because it controls the parallel process and in-memory transformation.
Yes, correct.
It really doesn't, the backend database is out of that. So.
Yes, because see, our engine is completely different. If we, whatever the configuration we did for our engine, right? So it will do the parallel processing and in-memory data transformation. Sometimes in-memory data transformation is nothing but like, sometimes when it does the parallel processing, there is some memory it will consume. So that memory we need to define when we like install the tool. So whenever engine will start, then it will go for parallel processing in memory data transformation. That's all. Yeah, still we have some time. So anyone have any questions or we want to discuss something? Yeah, we can go ahead. Next schedule, maybe tomorrow at same time we will meet again and we will go to the next modules. We have time as well. So if someone have any questions to discuss here, we can discuss or we can close the call for today.
Take advantage of the remaining time. I think we can make it a useful time. If you guys have some practice that did and wanting
Okay.
some help,
Meantime, I will show you designer as well, so that
okay,
it
that
will
would be
be
great.
clear for you.
Yes.
Okay. Let me log in and then I will share my screen.
So Venkat Shravan here.
Mm-hmm.
So in workflows, the target is it should be a table or else
No,
uh,
in workflow, inside a workflow, we can make use of script and a data flow. So inside a workflow, we cannot directly take the tables or transformations. If we want to use tables or transformation, we should make use of data flows.
okay. So in data flows, if the target should be a table.
It's not mandatory. It can be a table, it can be a file format, whatever you want, you can take. There is no any restrictions like I should use table as a target, or I should use table as a source, or I should use file as a source, or I should use file as a target. Whatever as per requirement, we should go.
Okay, we can place this in any of the application server as
Yes. Yeah.
well. Okay, is BODS is similar to web methods like thing?
Means
Uh, maybe this question is relevant, but I'm a little bit confused between the two. Web methods is the one which picks up a file from one location and it gives or else transforms or else
no,
it,
no, no.
it's not
So
similar,
data
right?
service is different because if you want to access some file from some location, so directly you need to give that particular location and you can mention that file name or you can parameterize that the file name as well. There is no any third party was required in data services.
No, no, no. Is this similar to web methods? Is that my question?
Actually, I don't know about web method, but when it comes to BODS, yeah, obviously there is some options are there to connect to particular location to access the files.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Venkat, in workflow level, can we do some DDL operation like inserting the data into the table and select the data from the table, and we can assign to
Yeah,
the various.
by using scripts we can do.
We can do.
Yeah.
We can move the files from one location to another locations also, right?
No.
Suppose, hello.
No, that won't possible.
No, no. For example, once I read the file from the location, after that I want to move that file to another location. Where we do that that kind of operation?
Yeah, for that inside a data flow you can do. File movement we cannot do, but we can access the file. We can write into the file. File movement we cannot do from BODS. File data we can transfer from one file to another file.
That is
For
okay.
example,
So
yeah,
after that, no, daily we'll get the one file in the source system. Okay. So once the read that into, we can save into some other with the today's date, the file name underscore the today's date. I want to move that into the uh, the another folder basically. So that is not possible in VODS.
that can be possible. That can be possible inside a data flow. It cannot be only inside a workflow. It won't possible.
Okay, anywhere, like either in a data flow or workflow, it is possible, right? Once I read the file, after that we can move to another location. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
For that, you need to configure both source and target locations.
Okay, that is okay.
And you can give the file name, whichever you want.
So once the load into the target table, then it will go to the target folder, right? So
Yes, yes.
okay, okay, good. So you can open the design.
Yeah, let me share my screen. You can see my screen, right?
Yes.
So this is how the designer will looks like. So this was the project area. This was the monitor area and this was the log area. Okay. So let's come from here itself. So in project, if you want to create anything new, project is nothing but, I told you now, like a folder, like this folders we can create. Okay. New, we can click on new. We can create project name. If we click on create, then this folder will be created. Or this is the one option. Or if we click on here right now, if we click on project, we go right click, we click on new. Even here also it can be possible.
Okay.
So like this. Not only project, here patch job, real-time jobs, workflow, data flow, above data flow, transform, data stores, file format, whichever if you want to create, you can create here. Open, like if you want to open any of the project, so you need to select that particular project. If you click on open, then that particular project will come to your project area. This is one of the option. If I want to open one more project at a time, we can open only one project here. Like fourth project, for team 4 project was open, right? I just want to work on team 01, then I can simply drag it here. So now team 1 project also open. Now if team 01 project was open, then team 04 team underscore 04 project also closed. Like current project, if we want to work on some other project, the previous one will be closed automatically. Like this, you can drag here. At a time, we can open only one project.
So where this, I mean, these project folders will create in a repository, it will create.
Yes, in repository, it will create. In backend table, it will store this information.
Okay.
Okay. And whatever the projects that you have opened, right? Those information will be shown here. Which project at what time it was opened. Okay. So that is open, and close it means like it will close that particular folder. Okay. Okay. Save all. Like if you want to work on something, if you want to save all of them, you can do save all directly, like here or here. If you can click save all. Okay. Exit. If you click on this, the tool will be closed off. So clear, right? All of these options.
Yes.
Print is nothing but normal print itself. How do we do printing, right? Same, similar to that only. Delete is nothing but if you want to delete something, for example, this project you want to delete. So now this delete option will be enabled. If you click on this project, whole project will be deleted. Okay. So no doubts, right? These options. Now coming to edit. Edit is nothing but like if you want to undo something, like you're working on something, like you're writing some script. Unfortunately, you typed something. You want to do undo your changes. this option will be enabled whenever you do your development task. And also let me tell you one thing. So see here in this job, inside this job workflows, we have this workflow, we have data flows. If you want to cut this data flow, you need to select this data flow. You need to go here, you need to do cut. That means this data flow was gone. You need to come back, and if you want to paste here, you can paste. So this will become here like this. Okay, this was the cut, copy, paste. So how we do, right, for our general files in our file manager, like this. Delete also same. If you want to delete this one, then edit, delete. So it will be gone from this job. Then recover last deleted. It was came here. Then select all. It will select all this. You can do like that, or you can just drag this. It will be select all of this. While you're working on all of this, you will get to know all these options. Clear all. If I click on this, it will clear this screen. Okay, now everything was gone. Gone means it just cleared the screen. So every object will be gone. So for example, by mistakenly you just clear all of this. So you haven't saved this work. So you want all of them to be back. Either you can do Control Z, undo. Even undo options also not enabled because no object sits there. So undo options is not here. That time what you will do, you just right click here, refresh object library. So you don't want to make these latest changes, right? Just click on no. So in team 05, right? So all of them will be there. No changes will be happen. Okay, like this it was. Next, view. View is nothing but like how this project area will be. If I don't want this local object library, I can close this one. So it went off, right? So if I want to have this default layout, apply default layout. So this project area local object library was came to me. Status bar. If I want status bar, then I can choose. If not, I can close. So this thing was gone. If I want status bar, then yeah, status bar. This was the status bar. Tabs in workspace. If I click on this, then these tabs will be opened here one by one. If not, then tabs will not come. I will tell you. So this one, start page tab. If I open, so team 5 project I was open, right? If I click on job, this job tab will be open. If I click on workflow, then workflow tab. If I click on data flow tab. If I don't want these tabs, tabs in workspace, so no tabs will be visible. Like we don't no need to know like which tab we are in. It was easy because of we are having some lesser amount of objects here. If we are having huge number of what we call flows, then it won't visible. So that time again view tabs in workspace so that these tabs will be comes. If you want to come back, you can click on. If you go to forward, you can go forward. Okay. So that is all the view. Refresh. And do the refresh. Refresh was done. And even you can do here or and do it from here. If you do it from here, then this project will be closed automatically. So that is how the view was. Tools. This was the most important thing in the what we called designer object library. So I don't want object library, then from tools I just select the object library. If you want, then you can click again, object library will come. Same applicable to project area. And variables, like whenever you work on something, for example, in this project, in this job, I have, for example, I've defined some variables. I just want to view the variables and I can click on variables. So for this job, see job T02 VOLI. for this job, no variables as defined here. You can click from here variables, or the same tab available here itself. See variables, same tab will be open. Then output, if you are executed some jobs, if you want to see the output, you can click on output, or if you want to have some information, if you validate some flows, you can see the output here. Central object library. So if you are enable central repositories, so there is no central repositories configured here, so only these options are not available for you. Central object library, profile server monitor. Profile server monitor means like this profiler repository. So this option will be available whenever you have admin role. So these all are admin options. Except central object library, these all are admin options. We don't have access for those. Next, custom functions. If you want to create some custom functions, we can create. System configurations. If you want to do configurations, we can do. Substitution parameters. We will discuss about this in our later sessions. Profiler server login. Once you log in here, then only this will be enabled. Then only you will have access. Audit. Whenever you want to run the job in a debug mode, then only this audit option will be available. Export. If you want to export this job, you can click on export. See, I haven't selected anything, so only nothing has come here. I want to select this one and tools, export, then also not came. Even I don't know much about this option, why export option was given here, but you can do export from here. Repository, export to file. This option was similar to this option. Export option. Import from file. For example, you have exported some repository and you want to import that particular ATL file. You can click on this import file. It will go to that particular location. Wherever you have that ATL file, you can choose that file. You can click on open, so that you can import that file to your local repository. Am I moving faster, or is that okay? You are understanding the options?
I mean, for me, it's fine. I don't know everyone.
So Venkat, the importing file, so can we copy the ATL file and can we paste here in the...
No, that won't possible, because whenever you do export, right, that time you need to give some passphrase. So whenever you import that file, you need to give the passphrase. Then only it will import. Otherwise, it won't import. Like Control C, Control V of ATL file won't happen in Designer.
So, for example, in the team, in your current project team 02, under that there is a one job, right? So once we export that one, the entire job will, I mean, created one ATL file, or it will be the same structure, job, workflows, data flows, kind of the structure will create.
No. Okay. So here you don't have export option. So if you want to export something in my team underscore 02, I should click on that job and I do export. If I do export, all these things are done. And I told you previously, right, to exclude the configuration. So in this job, we make use of these two configurations. If I don't want to have this development configuration in my test environment, I just right click, exclude. If I do exclude here, this configuration won't go, but these tables will go to the next system, like next environment, test environment.
So if you do that, then you have to create the configuration on the target environment.
Yes, correct. We should create the same data store name. Here my data store name was HANA. So the same data store name with different configurations we can create in the test system. And these tables directly will be pointing to the HANA configuration in test environment.
And you're only gonna do that once.
Sorry?
You're only going to do that once.
Yes.
So if you have a revision on that package, How are you going
Hmm?
to re-import or merge that to the existing one that you have already
Yeah,
in?
anyhow, your job will be moved to test environment, right? And
Correct.
so, so these tables are available in some other data store, like different name in the
Uh-huh.
test environment. So that time, what you will do there, you need some manual effort from your end. Like that time, what you will do now, right? You need to go each of the data flows in the test local repository. There, you need to manually drag the table, whichever the data store it has. Got my point, right?
Yes. So there's a little of an extra
Yes,
to do.
yes. Yeah, manual work we need to do. So only like naming conventions will plays an important role when we implement a job for each of the objects, like for job, for workflows, for data flows, for tables. So each of them we can tables anyhow we won't change the name, but data flows, workflows, jobs, these data stores we should maintain some standard naming conventions. So Shravan, you have asked something, right? Your question was clear, right? Or is
It's clear.
okay. So tools, export, import, metadata exchange. So metadata exchange means like from CMC to our local repository. Central management console is there, right? So from there to our local repository, if you want to extend some metadata, then this will be used. So this option mostly used by admin. So this option was not used by developer. So this one no need anywhere when you develop the jobs. Next, business object universe. Even this option also available in. So this option will be usable by admins only. We are not going to use this option. Central repositories. So
Is
like
this Venkat, sorry to interrupt you. So business object universe is something like it's a creation of a universe in a reporting tool BO.
it might be similar, but I don't have much idea about this option because till now I haven't used this option in my real-time jobs. Like whatever the project I have worked, I haven't make use of this option.
Okay. So you say that we can do debug. Okay. So in the audit option, we can do that, right?
No, debug option is there.
Okay.
Audit option, we can see the logs of this debug.
Okay. Once we do the debug and then the logs will be stored under
Yes,
this.
yes, yes. And central repository, this option. So whenever you enable any of the central repositories, like you want to enable any of the central repositories, you need to click on this option. So from this, you can get the central repositories here. If you have anything, you can add here. So there is no central repositories are associated with all these repositories. So we don't have any of the central repositories here. If we have any, then we can add those central repositories and we can activate those. Once those are activated, this window will be enabled. See here. So from there, we can see all the objects which are there in the central repository. Next, options. So these are the extra options which will be few of them are used by developer, most of them are used by admin team. So environment, for suppose there are couple of job servers are there in which one job server was not working properly due to some issues. You can make some other job server as your default job server. Here in this tool we have only one job server, so we don't have that drop down to choose the job server here. We have multiple job servers, then we can choose whatever as our default job servers. And then port here in like port is ranging from 5 and 5001 to 5005 or something In between, if someone is using some other port, you can use this some any other port, like 5001 is used by me, and in that port there are n number of requests are coming and going. So that port was too much busy to take your request. So at that time you can make use of some other port as well. So you can give this port and remaining options which all are there here, right? So these all are the options which will be used by admin. We don't have authorization to use all of them. Okay, like that it was. Next, from here we can open the management console. If we click here, it will open the management console directly. So here we need to give the server details and everything so that we can log on. Later we will discuss about management console. So tools, so all the options are covered. Next, debug. If you want to execute job directly, you can click on execute, or here this execute button is available. Okay, and these are our options are not required for us. And if you want to execute some job in debug mode, you can execute that job in debug mode. If you click this option, it will start the debugging of the job. So in this debug, either you can choose here or you can go here. Start debugging, stop debugging, purge debugging, everything. So all these three options are available here. So once debugging has started, step over, get next row, continue, these options will be enabled. And filters like if you in a debug mode, if you run any of the job, you cannot go inside the query, any of the transformations. So if you want to have something, so you can click on this show filters or breakpoints, or once you click that option, you can have this set breakpoint option. For example, what happens, whenever you run the job in a debug mode, you need to like from till this point, job was executing fine. From next point, the job was there is some issue. So you want to set some breakpoint at there. From that point only, next from that point to next point, it has some issue. Okay, so if you set that breakpoint, from that breakpoint to till next steps, you can do a debugging task. For that purpose, this option was available. And in the after you are applying this filters or breakpoints, you can have this filters or breakpoint, whatever you want to see, you can see all of that. And if you want to see a small trace, like in debug mode, you can see the trace and what all are the variables that particular flow uses. You can see the variables. Call stack is nothing but like where from where to where the signal was processing. How the it's like when we make use of while loop, right? How the loop was running. That time we will have this call stack enabled, so we can see the looping thing as well. So validation is nothing but, see, here two options are there, right? If I want to only validate this flow, like outside two workflows are there, right? If I want to validate these two, is there any like coding level issues are there? So I can go for this validate. So it will show that if it is any error there, then it will show that error. If no errors are there, then no errors it will show. Okay. And if I click on validate all, it will go for inside of the workflow, inside of this workflow, inside of this data flow, it will go and check for everything. Is there any syntactical error or something was there? And it will check for all, not only for this workflow, for every object in this job. It will check if it is found any error, then it will show like on these transformations, this error was there. Something error it will throw, then directly if we right click on that, view where go to that error, something if we click, then directly it will go to that particular error where it was getting. So that is the validation. And then window, like I told you, right? Forward, backward, and cascade, horizontally, close all windows, project area, local object library, start page, this job. So all these informations are available in this window. Help. If you need any help, then we can go to SAP documentations. So from this, we can access the help pages from the SAP community. So these all are the options. Any
Venkat,
doubt?
can you go to that validation
Okay.
and show it? Can you click second one? What is this one?
So ATL means, see, this will give the ATL file.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one we can import, right? So we can import
No,
and
no,
do some.
no, no. This will give some line of code.
What is the logic inside? We have that one. So
Yes. If you have some ABAP coding, all this, right? You can check all these things.
this is not important like
No,
import
no, this
export
is different. No,
different
this was
ATL file.
different.
This is
Yeah.
not a actual
This
ETL
was
file.
just showing the ATL file of these two workflows only. What is
Okay,
all available.
okay.
With this, we can do anything.
Okay.
Yeah. You understood all of this, right?
Yes, sir.
So you know new means like new project. If you are in project area, you can create only new project here. If you are in job area, you can create only new batch job or real-time job. If you are in workflow area, if you click right click, new means workflow, it will create. Like this, same applicable to data flows, applicable to data stores, applicable to file formats and customer functions. Transformations, we don't have new options here itself. Okay. Any questions till now?
So Venkat, the import export option, like we can do at the job level, right? Not at the project level, right?
Project level also we can do.
We can move the okay
See,
from one
I want to export. Okay, go ahead.
want like in the project to have a 10 jobs at a time. We can move the job all at project level. We can select that one. All the jobs will move to dev to QA, right?
Yeah, yeah. If you want to do export, right, you should right click and you can do export. In this project, only one job is there. If you have multiple jobs, in that 5 jobs, out of 5 jobs, you need only 2 jobs. You don't want remaining 3 jobs. You can select or deselect. You can, for example, consider this. We have 2 workflows, right, in this job, in which this workflow and this job only I just want to move to next environment. I don't want this workflow. Then right click, exclude tree. If I do exclude tree, workflow, inside this workflow, whatever the objects are there, all will be excluded. See here,
Okay,
workflow, data flow, tables, everything will be excluded. And if you right click here, export to ATL file or XML file also we can do.
okay,
Okay, if I do export ATL file, whichever folder I just want, I can keep that in that particular folder. I can give that name, some X, Y, Z I gave, and I just want to save this one. Passphrase, I told you, na passphrase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever the number code, whatever you want, you can give, you can do export, then that ATL file will be generated. Okay, like that it was. Any questions? Clear, right? No questions till now. So don't get worry about all these options. While you are working, you will very much familiar with all these options. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for me? If not, we can close the call for today.
Venkat,
Okay.
Shravan.
Yeah, tell me.
Please go ahead, Maria.
No, go ahead, Shravan.
What are the next topics, like tomorrow's topic, so that we can just have a heads up on that?
Okay. Okay, just give me a second. Tomorrow I will just explain you like how do we create a repository. Like theoretically, I just will give you some insight about this. How do we install our BODS, and how do we update if any existing repository is there. That scenario I will explain. And the next scenario was how do we create a batch job, what all are the process, and what all are the things that we need to have, what all are the after creating the batch job, what all are the objects that it can handle, and also from one tab to another tab, how can we navigate, how do we delete the objects inside a job, how do we save the uh, generated ATL files, how do we import the files, some real-time experience, some practical sessions we will have in tomorrow's session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Venkat, does these objects, does SAP recognize them as a object and be able to put them on a transport, or do you have to manually put these in transports if we want to maintain between two environments?
I think this is
Hopefully that makes sense.
I think this is not transportable, not the transport that we are using.
That was my
I could
question.
not,
So that if we,
no, I could not understand your question, Bob.
I think we have to use the import-export capability of this BODS. As at least that's how I
No,
know it
import
from.
export only the objects we can do, like projects, jobs, workflows, data
Yeah.
flows. Those only we can do import exports. Remaining things we cannot do.
okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, actually we use a tool called RevTrack, which controls
Yeah, we
our
can reuse. We can reuse
jobs.
the objects.
You can do RevTrack. You can use RevTrack on this. I thought we can.
Replica, right? Yeah, we can do replica.
No, not Replica.
No, not Replica. RevTrack.
RevTrack, which is a source management system, which basically controls our changes between systems. Today we're kind of using it on our HANA environment,
yes.
but
Yes, we can do that one.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.